Cool. All right. Can you hear me here? Cool. Okay, I'm late. Yes. All right, go in. I'll try to. Thank you.
Like, I don't think I've ever seen him on time.
I thought I heard him in the Discord. That wasn't him?
No.
Well, that's
okay.
Yeah, he joined the Discord.
Aftershock saying Joe should be on his way here.
He's here.
I'm here right now. What's up?
Now.
Oh, there's Joe.
There he goes.
Joe, do you
Yeah.
have the,
I thought I
you have the
heard
whereby link?
Yeah, I'm knocking too.
Okay, shit, you got the wrong one. Let me look in the chat room, not the one Aftershock. Yeah,
Gotcha.
check the welcome chat. That's the one.
Perfect.
Joe, we need to go out for brisket again sometime.
Yeah, something like that, right? There we go.
Gotcha.
When are
Joe,
you
perfect.
going back out? When are
Holy
you
shit,
going back
Joe,
out
you
of
got the
town?
freaking weekend
No.
vibes going on over there.
Something like that. Something
All
like
right,
that.
so real quick, let me get this correct. Fabian, you are a centrist or you righty?
I am a hardcore libertarian anarchist capitalist.
Okay,
Anarcho-capitalist.
so I'll
Right.
put you on the left.
Put him on
and
the
then-
right.
Okay, so yeah, we'll put.
I'm going to be hardcore right on most issues, and then occasionally you'll find me randomly in the hardcore left space.
Aircraft Sparky, where do you position yourself politically?
On the right.
Okay. All right, so we got a nice balanced panel. All right, gentlemen, we're about to get this thing started. Again, I will go over the rules once we're live. So do me a favor, just mute your mics. Give me about 30 seconds to a minute. Whenever you hear me talking again, we're live and we're going into the show. Okay. So I'm gonna step out. I'm gonna stay here. Please just don't talk. Just mute yourselves. When you hear me talk, we'll get into it. All right, let's freaking get this thing going. Let's have some fun. Muting my mic now.
All right, hello. So I'm currently on a panel. If you're seeing this, it's called Drunken Debates. It's with a few people that you might know: John Burk, Rob Knorr, Fabian Liberty Scott, Eric.
Welcome back to the Drunken Debates. I am your host, John Burk. It's the first time we've had the show back in quite some time, so we're happy for everybody joining us tonight. Real quick, panelists, you're good to unmute your microphones. I'm going to go ahead and be watching the chat. If I have any issues with audio or anything like that, chat, please make sure you make me aware of it. I would hate to see anything go wrong and people not actually able to enjoy the show. All right, I think we're good to go. All right, so panelists, thank you for being here tonight. My name is John Burke. This is the Drunken Debates. Real quick thumbs up. Everybody got me loud and clear?
Gotcha.
Roger that. Outstanding. Drunken Debates. The goal is to have really good intellectual discussions. All of our panelists have been pre-selected, many of which you probably recognize if you've seen the Drunken Debates panel before. So welcome back to our returning debaters and a welcome to our first-timers. So here's the rules. The way we're going to start is I'm going to go around the horn and you can introduce yourselves. And the way it's going to work is I'm going to introduce a topic. Now, please keep in mind, if you are watching or listening, none of these panelists have been given these topics. That's what makes Drunken Debates very special. Unlike many other panels, our panelists have no idea what's coming. I, the moderator, have picked them. My hand to God on the lives of my children and future unborn children. God forbid I ever have any more. I promise you, I have told nobody these topics. Moving forward, let's make sure we keep the insults minimal. Joking, I get it. But it's no holds barred, gentlemen. You make your points however you wish to make them. Just keep in mind, treat others as you wish to be treated. When you give your response to the topic, you're going to have, the way it's going to work is I will intro the topic. We'll have 1 minute for each person to initially give their viewpoint. Upon finishing of the last person's viewpoint, I'm going to open up into roundtable discussion and the debates will begin. All you have to do when we start off is, as long as you can keep it cordial, but raise your hand. I'll try and keep a mental note of who is wanting to talk, and we'll go in chronological order. In your initial response, you have 1 minute. After the debate and the debate table, when you get picked on, you have 2 minutes. Does that make sense so far? 1 minute for intro, and then 2 minutes per round, or two to give your rebuttal. From there, I don't want to interject verbally while you're making your points, so please keep an eye on my screen. When you see me raise my hand, you've got about 10 seconds left. I'll give you some leniency, that's fine, but if you keep going over, I will have to mute you. If people do not listen to my direction, I will mute them in Discord and no one will hear you. Never have to do that, just so you know. All right, so with that being said, I want to go around the horn. Gentlemen, take all the time you want. Give me your social media, where they can find you, your viewpoints, what you do, a little bit about yourself. Dylan Burns, a return panelist. Let's start with you, sir. Go right ahead.
Hello, my name's Dylan Burns. It's fun being on this show this time because last time I was a competing businessman, my own panel host. So I felt like I was in enemy territory, you know, like a person at Whole Foods visiting Walmart or something, you know. But now I can do it as a free man, you know, much like how I assume like Bill Gates views the world now that he's only engaged in philanthropy and he shows himself to be a good moral man like Soros. But I am Dylan. I'm a left-leaning person. So I would most accurately describe myself as a social democrat. And you can find me at Dylan Burns TV on YouTube, Dylan Burns Live on YouTube, and Dylan Burns TV on Twitch as well. Dylan Burns 7076 on Twitter. My big thing is I'm very interested in foreign policy, and I'm very specifically interested in the war in Ukraine right now. I just got back from Ukraine. I'm going back to Ukraine in a month to try to film with IED crews and others as we try to give a more on-the-ground perspective outside of the view of a lot of more mainstream press. The stories that most mainstream news don't cover because they can't fit the tampon commercials in it.
Appreciate that. Welcome to the panel. Next is Joe Lewis. Sir, he's a returning panelist. Welcome back to the show. Go ahead.
Yeah, how's it going? Happy New Year. I hope everybody's doing well and they found themselves in a decent spot at the start of this new year. And also very glad to be in a space with a lot of fine gentlemen on this Friday. It's been a while since I was on this. Maybe almost a year to the day, something like that. But thanks for having me again, John. Shout out to Aftershock who reached out to me. I deeply appreciate that. I'm glad I'm in your mind. Anyway, my name is Joelewis. I practice talking on the internet, and if you enjoy anything I might have to say, the handles generally are the same. So twitch.tv/JoeLewis with 2 O's, and also on Twitter, Joe Lewis with 2 O's. As Dylan is as well, I would align myself on the left. I'm a member of the Working Families Party, and generally speaking, I support reparations for American descendants of slaves. And when it comes to other advocacy outside of that, I'm a big advocate of education policy and making sure that schools are better broadly. So if those are two things that you might be interested in hearing more about, you can find me on those type of socials. And feel free, if there's anything in the conversation that wasn't clear, reaching out to me in those platforms and asking for clarity is the best way moving forward. But like I said before, thanks again for having me, and hopefully this will be fun.
Again, thank you for being here. I remember last time you were on the panel, you basically said the same thing as far as pushing for better school access and things like that. It's nice to see you still doing that. That's awesome. I would be remiss, real quick, if I did not take pause and thank Aftershock. Aftershock has done a lot. Basically, Aftershock set up this panel. He's already got next week's panel ready to go. I had reached out to Rob prior to the new year, and I said I would like to bring back Drunken Debates, but I need help. I run Shell Shock CBD, and we're about to launch another company. So there's a lot of time spent in that, and also I do the podcast and political commentation. And this panel was very popular. We had a lot of people wanting to come on it. I just didn't have the time. Rob wanted to be a part of it. This is also Rob's doing. And then Aftershock stepped in with also the help of Danabo. Very grateful to them. So big shout out to Aftershock facilitating all of this. So, all right, next on we have Sansol. Sansol is also a return panelist. Welcome back, Sansol. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm Sansol. I like to argue with people a lot on the internet. I like to play video games. People like to come and watch me rage at them because I'm really bad at them. I used to be a socialist, then I realized how stupid that was, and kind of moved over and became probably more close to what would be described as like a social democrat, like Dylan said. Though it's hard to subscribe to every single part of every single ideology, so I like to host conversations on my stream. So generally speaking, I have my my DMs open, so if anyone ever wants to come and talk to me, or if you take issue with anything I say on this stream, which with the audience on Rumble, I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of people that really don't like anything that I have to say. So yeah, if you guys ever want to hit me up, that's what I do on my show. Is just I love arguing, just love it.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I remember the shows. Well, that concludes all of our center left panelists. Let's go ahead and go to center right. First timer on the show, we've got Aircraft Sparky. Sir, go right ahead. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm a constitutional conservative. Recently found religion and working through my faith there. I do political commentary, and you can find me on Mondays and Wednesday nights on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitch, all at Aircraft Sparky, and on Twitter, Aircraft Sparky 1.
Okay, thank you for being here. It sounds like the panel or the chat is saying the volume's a little low, so I'm trying to adjust as we go. All right, we've also got, I think, first timer on the show, Fabian Liberty. I think it's your first time on the panel. Welcome.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I am Scott from Fabian Liberty. We are a libertarian duo stream, so if you want to put us on the right, that's fine. Currently, we're aligning with the right more than the left in a lot of issues. But I am the libertarian that is so ridiculous that I call out the LP for not being libertarian enough. It is actually not difficult to subscribe to a political ideology 100% of the way. The problem is that when you're a consequentialist, your value systems change. And that's the cool thing about being a libertarian, is that you're most concerned with natural law and what is morally justifiable. So search Fabian Liberty on Twitch, Monday through Thursday, 7 p.m. onward, EST, that is. Fabian Liberty on YouTube. You can search Fabian Liberty on Twitter as well, though it's technically Liberty_Fabian. And yeah, and listen to some theory bros and listen to the term morally unjustifiable way too many times. And yeah, we do news, we do a lot of debates. Sometimes we do some theory head shit, and it's fun.
All right, thank you for being here. And last but most certainly not least, he has been a multi-time visited panelist, and we have Mr. Rob Noor. Rob, the panel or the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be part of this. I know me and John have talked behind the scenes, and For those of you that really like listening to John's show, don't worry. Every other week, he's going to be a participant in the show. So next week, hopefully, I'll be taking over moderating duties, and John will be crushing lefties on here instead of me. But we try our best. No, it is really an honor, and I'm glad to be here with people that are game to talk about these things. Combines two things I love: drinking and debating. Though I'm not so much of a drinker anymore now that I'm a new father. I think maybe a new father since the last time I've done this show. So I have a son that's almost 2 years old. So I'm really excited to be back here and on a special day. I didn't know this until I went to Twitter today, but January 6th, a couple years ago, something crazy happened that was devastating to this country.
Okay,
Bosch-
easy. Before we get into the debate, let's just do intros and then we'll go into it.
I know. But apparently a guy named Vosh started a YouTube channel 4 years ago on January 6th. I think it's been devastating to this country. So, hopefully going forward, January 6th will be remembered as the return of Drunken Debates. And I'm honored, and I hope everyone else on this panel is, to be here for the first episode back. I consider myself a populist conservative. I'm going to be on the right on almost every issue.
Appreciate you being here. So this is the maiden voyage of the relaunch of Drunken Debates. And what we're going to do is tonight we're going to set it up to where essentially we're going to vote every round. We should have about 4 rounds tonight, each round lasting roughly 30 minutes, depending on how the conversation goes. If the conversation is going great, I'm not going to end the round because, again, we just want more spirited debate and discussion. That's fine. But I want to figure out a way to vote. Aftershock is working on this for each round and then an overall winner. In the future, moving forward, I am highly considering that the winner of the debate gets a $500 cash prize. So we're going to see how that goes, but I also know that some people have larger audiences than others, and naturally they're going to vote in favor. So it's all about the honor system, and I just don't trust that because on social media there is no honor. So we're going to see, but here's the other thing, though. For all the panelists that appeared on tonight's show, when you get done with this, go to shellshockcbd.com and pick out a product of your choosing, not the dark matter, that is $250, and it's yours for free. Just for coming on the show tonight, we have Delta 8, Delta 9, CBD, you name it, we've got it. Dylan, we got stuff that's going to get you high as fuck. It's cheaper, it's better for you. We'll square you away there. So every one of the panelists, thank you for being here. That's my thank you to you. All right, folks, without
My
further
co-host
ado...
is gonna love you.
Because
It's definitely going to my It's definitely going to my co-host. He's gonna be like, "Fuck
perfect.
yeah!"
Perfect. I'm slightly high right now, so
Let's go.
here we go. The first topic of discussion. Now, if you need me to repeat this question when it comes time to you, I'm more than happy to. Now, don't forget, I'm going to intro the topic, and then I'm going to pick on the first person. You're going to have 1 minute to give your stance. We'll go around the horn, and then we'll open it up to free debate. Here we go. Topic 1. With Elon now taking Twitter and attempting to turn it into a more of a freedom of speech, and I use the term because that's what he said. I'm not saying it is or is not. That's just what he says. And as a self-proclaimed free speech absolutist-based platform, how do you see this going? And will this impact other platforms, seeing as how the Twitter files have shown government censorship is very real? Now, you don't have to agree with the statement. You can challenge the statement and say, this is what your thoughts are. It's just to give you a generalized idea of what to talk about. So, with that being said, we're going to open it up with the first round of discussions to our new panelists. We're going to start with Fabian. Fabian, initial response and where you stand on this. You've got 1 minute. Begin.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's certainly heading in a positive direction. I don't want to let perfect be the enemy of the good. Personally, I don't really give a fuck about free speech. I think that free speech is a constraint upon the state that is designed to kind of give people the illusion that they have some checks or balances over their government. When really what I care about is, speech in terms of the private property owner and what they allow. I'm pleased to see that we have more of a public forum. I was skeptical at first, but I think Twitter files have shown that he's obviously at the very least trying to show some of the ways that, Donald Trump in 2018 signing CISA into existence kind of destroyed free speech on the internet in a certain degree, as well as, what has just been occurring. I think conservatives and libertarians have known for forever that there is no free speech online, especially for them. And it's nice to see the needle moving a little bit. And I'm interested to see what happens in the future.
All right, thank you, sir. Next, along the bottom of the panel, Sansol, we go over to you, sir. You've got 1 minute on the clock. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot to criticize about Elon and his takeover of Twitter. It feels like he is just kind of running around like a chicken with its head cut off. But I don't think it's this world-ending horrible thing that a lot of the people on the left are talking about. You see people like crying and saying that like literally freedom of speech on the internet is dying because there's going to be way too many Nazis on Twitter or some shit like that. I think it's really interesting watching what the fallout from the purchase of Twitter. But other than that, I feel like it's not really that big of a deal. In terms of like the Twitter files, I tried to like read through them and find anything that seemed extremely consequential, but nothing seemed that like off to me outside of like things that we would expect. So yeah, that's basically my take.
All right. We're going to move over to Rob Noor. Sir, you've got 1 minute. Go ahead.
First off, no one's the free speech absolutist that's in the social media sphere, so Elon's going to block stuff. What he's talking about is, in theory, the fundamental idea that we shouldn't be blocking people for things like political ideology. And the reason this is so important is because every major institution in this country goes the same way. It is establishment. Right now, the face of the establishment is the Democratic Party. Make no mistake, though, there are establishment people in the Republican Party as well. And so when people flock to these social media companies, or because they want to have free speech and to talk amongst themselves, when you see through the Twitter files that the government, that these tech companies were colluding together to censor certain people, whether they be average conservatives, average people that are questioning the establishment, or high profile people, or censoring certain arguments surrounding things like COVID, surrounding things like the election and stuff like that, you can see the importance of outing this. The Twitter files are a bombshell because, yes, people like me knew all along this was happening, but people like most of the lefties on this panel will say it wasn't happening. Now they say, well, of course it was happening. It's no big deal. We need more of it. We need more free speech because their ideas are so bad they have to rely on censorship to get them passed.
All right. That is your minute. We're going to move over to Joe Lewis. Sir, you have 1 minute. Oh, and I apologize real quick before I forget. We also do this for closing arguments, 1 minute rounds. In said closing arguments, gentlemen, please pay close attention. No pop shots at each other. And what I mean by that is, say, for example, Joe Lewis makes his closing argument, and then Sansol takes a shot at him and he can't respond. Keep it strictly about the topic, please. Does that make sense? Because I think that's fair. I would hate to see somebody try and use their position to play the game. So, Joe Lewis, sir, on to you. You have 1 minute. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of avenues for open discourse and debate online, and I think Twitter is probably the best avenue for that. So I think we need to do a better job at embracing Twitter moving forward. I think it's very good for bilateral exposure. I think it's very good for exposing vulnerabilities of ideas and stuff like that, but it's going to take some time for anybody in a position like Elon Musk to kind of get the things worked out in a way that like gets as many people as satisfied as possible. And I think like when it comes to just like broadly of like politicians and journalists, just everybody, I think we need to have an account and be able to have those accounts to be associated with like competing arguments and stuff like that. There was some muddling and mumbling about like transferring over to things like Mastodon and stuff like that, but I think moving to Mastodon from Twitter, or moving from Twitter to Mastodon, excuse me, is like moving to like Windows to Ubuntu. Like it's just like good luck with it, and have fun with like the couple Mac users you get along the way. But I think Twitter's in a good position. It's a good position to, I think it's a great opportunity to be on the app. Solid stuff.
After next is Dylan Burns. After Dylan Burns is 1 minute is elapsed, we go into free debate. All you gotta do is just raise your hand and I'll call on you. All right, Dylan, you have 1 minute on the clock, so
Sparky.
go right ahead.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we didn't go through. I'm sorry. No. Didn't we hit Sparky?
No.
nope.
Oh, okay. So we'll do Dylan, then we'll do Sparky. Dylan, over to you, sir.
So for me, right, I am generally okay with where Twitter is when it comes to a moderation standpoint of where it is. There's a few specific things I would tweak here or there. The main thing that has gotten me about Elon Musk and the people who support him isn't that I disagree with everything that he's done. I think that he's really done a good job when it comes to the context adding to tweets when people are very deceptive or they're specifically being misrepresentative, just being like, hey, readers think this is important context. I think it's been applied across the board in a pretty good way. He didn't come up with the idea, but he expanded upon it. That's good. my main issue, honestly, with Twitter right now is every other time I look in my Twitter DMs, it's a bot, and it's more than ever. More than ever. I don't know if this is something that's picked up since he's took over, but I'm getting job offers from random people in like Tahiti like every other day in my DMs, and it's gotten worse since he's taken over. I don't know if the more lax moderation policy has meant more bots were able to go onto the platform, but when it comes to bots also, Elon Musk not only hasn't done anything about this issue, but also he has used this issue to kind of as a scapegoat for a lot of times when hasn't gotten the adulation of the public. I have a lot of other things I want to say, but I'll just start with that.
Okay, thank you very much. Aircraft, over to you. Sorry, I forgot about you. So once again, after Aircraft is finished with a statement, raise your hand. We go into open debates. If nobody raises their hands, we move on to the next topic. Okay? All right, Dylan, we keep losing your video for some reason. Aircraft.
Today, sorry, man. I'll keep
Oh, you're
trying.
good.
Every time he
You're
takes a hit off of that big old blunt.
You got your computer high, bro.
It's too much for the camera to take.
All right, Aircraft Sparky, you've got 1 minute, sir. Over to you. Go right ahead.
Well, I've been banned multiple times off of the Twitter platform, mostly for upsetting people because I say something somewhat upsetting, I guess. I got banned one time for making a cookie joke because a woman had a bunch of freckles on her face, and I compared her to a raisin oatmeal cookie, and got banned for that for hate speech. I think it's a little ridiculous. Look, the idea of free speech absolutism on social media platforms is not going to happen. People who run these platforms are going to apply their own idea of what is hate speech to it. I think Twitter is getting better overall, but I have seen a growth in bots. I think the talk about how bots are running rampant amongst social media platforms, it's something that needs to be talked about. It's something that needs to be addressed. But here's the deal. As long as these social media companies are getting stipends from the government is going to come in. The Twitter files have exposed exactly what's going on there. We have seen insane amounts of governmental intrusion with these social media platforms. These are now the propaganda wing of the government. And until we can get them out of social media, it's going to be a bloodbath throughout there. They're just going to go through and just anyone who's dissenting, they are going to end up getting rid of.
Gentlemen, we've now entered into open debates. Continue.
Go ahead.
Fabian,
Let's go.
Fabian, go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple of things I want to mention. In terms of Sansol, you were talking, and you weren't supporting this, but like some of the people freaking out. One of the things I think is interesting about this is that people have like first started paying attention to Elon Musk with the takeover of Twitter, even though like he was obviously a popular public figure before. This is kind of the first time people are like seeing how he behaves. And if you like actually pay attention to like what Elon Musk has been doing for a decade, like he does this shit all of the time. Like if you look at like you can tell that he works with Kathy Wood. He's very good friends with Kathy Wood, right? Which is, the ARC, the basic, she runs ARC, right? Which like if you think BlackRock, Vanguard, ARC's pretty fucking close, right? And so like he does crazy publicity things, making it seem like he's a psycho to get the market to do certain things when he usually has a plan. And I know you hear conservatives say this all the time, like, and they used to with Trump, like, trust the plan, right? Like, but it's not like that. Like he has a pattern of doing this over and over again. Like this is why he got in trouble with the FCC being like, I think Tesla's undervalued, right? Because he didn't want it to crash randomly. So he intentionally caused a crash. Like he does this shit all the time. It's the same thing with the poll that he did where he was like, who's going to run? Like, should I step down? And then people were like, get in. We got to get rid of Elon Musk with this Twitter poll he promises to abide by.
Sure.
Like he was already planning on stepping down once he found someone. He just wanted people on Twitter to fucking freak the fuck out about it.
I find it kind of hard to believe that like everything is like a 4D chess thing with Elon when there seems to be
not
so
everything.
You're right. It seems to be
some of it I'm sure is
missteps, so many missteps on his part. Like I don't think that he wasn't he forced to buy Twitter because of the fact that he said he was going to buy Twitter, and then there were all these talks, and then he tried to back out, but like that. Like if you understand business, right? Well, that seems like such an insult. I didn't mean it like that. I mean, like if you understand like what he's doing, right? Like what he's doing is he's forcing it into court and essentially threatening them with discovery to get a cheaper price and or be able to get things publicly made public. Yeah. I don't think. you
Real quick,
cheaper, did you?
Sansel, can we get you to turn your mic up, please, sir?
Here, I can
coming in
move my
really low.
mic a little bit
Yeah,
closer.
perfect.
Oh
Thank you
shit!
very
Let me
much.
cut you down a little bit. Now.
I got to go
Oh,
over to
sorry
Rob
about
real
that.
quick. Rob had his hand up. Rob,
Well,
go ahead.
Can I respond
yeah.
to anything they said?
Sansel, respond, then we'll go to Rob.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit hard to believe that like all of it's 4D chess. I think that some of it is a lot of publicity stunts. I think that he's like a mega memer, like Reddit bro. Let's get some updates on this. Like, let me post some memes and shit. But
Dogecoin to the moon.
Yeah, Dogecoin to the moon, all that shit. Which I mean, like since he supported all of the game stonk stuff, it seems like he doesn't. Like maybe he's not as good of a businessman as everybody thought he was, but like this is what I think. I think that Elon wanted to. It seems like he wanted to virtue signal to a certain audience. Stumbled his way into buying Twitter, and then he wanted to like go like once he like actually was in possession of it, whether he was forced to or not. There's a disagreement there, and I don't have like articles in front of me, but it seems like after he bought it, he was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go full on into it. I'm gonna like virtue signal and try and get as many people that would agree with like the free speech angle as possible over here, while like making all these missteps, talking about like we need to completely destroy the code and like rework it from the ground up, while not being able to explain anything about the code or why it needs to be reworked from the ground up. It doesn't seem like he actually knows anything about the website, so it's probable that he was thinking about stepping down anyway, and that's why he made that poll. But I don't think it makes him look good to like have everybody like pile in and say yes, step down, and then be like, oh well, I abide by the wishes of the people. It just seems like a weird cope thing to me, you know.
Let's go over to Rob, and then to Sparky, then to Dylan. Rob, go ahead.
So here's the thing. You don't put your faith in any human being. I wouldn't even put my own faith in myself. I fail all the time. This is something that happened with Donald Trump. There were a lot of people that supported Trump, which I supported Trump. I volunteered for his campaign. I was offered a job, low level through it. But I still criticized him when I felt it was warranted. And so many people, when they support someone, they are just like, trust that person, they'll take care of it. There is no savior. Not one person is going to come and save everyone. It's not going to happen. The corruption in this country is incredible in its magnitude. It absolutely is. In fact, the corruption around the globe. Elon is probably not a conservative. He probably doesn't care about free speech. He probably has a personal angle. Everything that Fabian and Sansel said is probably true. That's why I'm uninterested in what his personal motivations are. Just like Trump, my interest in this is that both Trump and Elon have outed, not because of 4D chess, but because of the situation they were involved with, corrupt people that rely on corruption and censorship. And they have upset them because it is seen as a possible removal of the stranglehold on power they have. Remember, the Democrats, so many people on the left that you see freaking out like Sansel is talking about, they're not worried that Elon Musk was coming in and going to apply the same censorship rules to Democrats, to left-wing establishment type people that has been applied to conservatives and anti-establishment people. They're not worried about that. They're merely worried that they will lose their near 100% stranglehold on platforms that have public discourse to be able to censor any narrative that they want. Professor Robert Epstein testified in front of the Senate that the manipulation of Google's algorithm alone was able to possibly sway as many as 16 million votes. Even if you don't believe that, the 2020 election was basically decided by 45,000 votes in 3 or 4 states. When you have every major institution, academia, the entertainment industry, corporate America, Silicon Valley, the intel agencies and groups like that, all going in the same direction, and you find out that there is collusion we're seeing from the Twitter files between the state and these massive social media companies, it is influencing our culture and elections and stole the election more than anything Russia was ever accused of.
All right, let's go ahead and push over to Sparky, then we'll go to Dylan.
Yeah, and look, I'm not going to sit there and say that Elon has been running 4D chess this whole time, but let's also remember there's been reports such as him sending out emails throughout his entire company that all look like just regular emails that everyone just got, and would put double spaces in different areas just to see who was the leaker. That way, when it got leaked, they could figure out exactly who was doing it. He has also done things like he took a failing company, which was Tesla. There was engineers that had this great idea how to manufacture these electric cars, but had no idea about how business ran. He bought that company, he worked it, he made it profitable, and then he's also done things with SpaceX, actually getting rockets to land themselves on the ground. I mean, this is some amazing technology. Look, this guy isn't the smartest guy in the world by any means. He's not playing some weird mystical chess, but he is very strategic in his moves. And I believe that he he does think that there is a reason why he does it, and overall, he becomes a success.
Dylan?
Yeah, okay, sorry. I got distracted for a second. So when it comes to Elon, honestly, my main thing with Elon Musk, and I think nobody here is really like an Elon Musk fanboy, is that we say that it's like, oh, maybe it's 3D or 4D chess, and I assume for a few of these things it is. But I think when you're like the 4D, 5D, 6G master chessman, eventually you can just say every dumb, like idiotic move you do is a 4D, 5D master chess. Like, oh, you know that policy they made, so they banned links to their competitors that everyone hated and they got thrashed for? That was actually a 5D chess move to make the stock price move. It's like, eventually you're just kind of like looking for intent where there's not really much intent to be found. And you're just trying to like just build a path in your head to make like Tony Stark. Like Elon Musk has made some mistakes here. I would say the banning of links to other websites would be one. I would say that honestly, and this might give me some heat, the Kanye West ban was a mistake, because Kanye West, maybe if he did do a threat, which was his accusation, which that post was not a threat, the combination of the Star David swastika, it wasn't a threat. I think it's gross. I think it's anti-Semitic, but I don't think it's a threat. If anything, I think his comment "DEF CON to the Jews" is more clearly or close to a threat than putting the swastika and a Star of David together. So I think honestly, if we're going to be holding him to this free speech standard that many people have said he's a free speech warrior, the Kanye West thing is something I would like to ask him about. Like, is it just a ban you did because Kanye was making your company look bad and your company was getting a lot of bad attention and people were worried about what type of crazy shit was going to go on Twitter once Elon let all the dogs loose and then this is what's happening? Was that it? What about the ban he did on denying historical events? Saying, for example, if you come out and you deny the Armenian genocide or deny the Holocaust, you will be banned on Twitter. Is that holding up to the free speech standard that we all thought he should have? I'm not saying that policy should be reversed. I'm just saying I don't believe the product as is advertised when it comes to Elon. John, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Oh, shit. Sorry about that. Sansol, I got you, Fabian. Sansol, 2 minutes to you, then over to Fabian. Sansol, go ahead. 2 minutes.
Sure. So I don't think that there's been any corruption that's been leaked by Twitter in any of these Twitter files. I've gone through them,
Sparky.
and I was about to ask Sparky if he had any, like, if he could like find me which one of the Twitter files, because I think there's like 13 or 14 of them at this point. Like if you could like link me like which one shows that there's any kind of collusion between the governments and Twitter to like outright ban people, like that would be like really, really interesting to me, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. I remember seeing one where they sent a list of names and they said, hey, keep your eyes on this. We're not requesting any action, but you know, like they're doing like this, that, or the other.
I have to interject real quick. The most recent Twitter file drop showed emails of Adam Schiff requesting over, I think it was 250 accounts to include journalists be banned. It was proven through the email. If that was the most recent, I could be wrong on that. I'm not saying this to make a point, but just to keep everybody aware.
Yeah,
go ahead.
But maybe I'm thinking of a different one. Maybe there was one dropped.
There's been a lot.
I've been trying to like find a place where they're all like compiled in one place so I can read them all at once, but it's hard to track down which person dropped when, you know.
Go to Wikipedia. There's a list. There's a table of content on Wikipedia.
Can somebody get a link to that in the chat? Can somebody get a link to that in the chat, and that way we can share? Yeah, that way we can all be on the same situation. Go ahead.
Yeah, my final thing that I was going to ask Aircraft Sparky, like, do you think that you said that Elon can, you know, he can make these rockets that can land on the moon and then like come back down to Earth and land and still be in one piece? First off, do you think that just because someone can do that they can run a social media website? Do you think these two skill sets are at all comparable? Number two, do you think that Elon Musk himself is like writing out the code for the computers on there and doing the calculations for any of the rockets himself? Or do you think that he's hiring people out to do that for him? I'm not trying to knock his business prowess, because obviously he's a successful businessman, but the idea that he's some sort of like mega genius Iron Man guy, like that idea has gone away, and since like fucking like 16 after he like did the weird flamethrower stunt, it's just ludicrous to think that just because you can run a successful like rocket business that you can run a social media business. They're completely different worlds.
All right, we're gonna go over to Fabian and then up to Sparky. Fabian, you've got 2 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the big problem here is we're working off an assumption of what we mean by collusion, what we mean by coercion, and what we mean by free speech. And I think people are operating on different definitions here. So like when we're talking about free speech absolutism, right? Then what you were talking about is you're allowed to say one of two things: whatever you want, no matter whether or not it's illegal, or you're talking about being able to say whatever you want unless it's strictly against the law, right? And no social media company in their right mind is going to be a free speech absolutist, because there's certain content that you want to curate off of your platform. You know, for example, some websites don't want a bunch of pornography on theirs. Twitter apparently is okay with that. But the thing is that when we talk about solving this problem, you're not going to solve this problem until we get a Supreme Court case, where we can get a proper understanding of Section 230, interpreted by the lower courts. We don't need to change the Section 230. We need clarification from SCOTUS. If you want to understand more about that, then just read the Cert of Denials by Thomas. And people need to go to jail. A lot of people need to go to jail, right? Because what we saw was obvious violations of the First Amendment by the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration's Customs Enforcement. A ton of government agencies are chock full of treasonous individuals that should be, by the law, right, should be put in a firing squad or hanged. That's just what the punishment for treason is, right? Like, I'm not advocating anything other than a proper and appropriate punishment for that. When you ask, like, well, what did they do, right? This is the other problem with coercion and collusion, right? When the state is the same thing that regulates you and gives you special protections, and they're also asking you, hey, will you give a secret blue check mark to our PSYOP accounts so that we can lie about the people we're bombing in the Middle East? And then you go, well, I didn't really see much of anything. It's like, whose side are you on?
All right, let's go ahead and kick it up to Aircraft Sparky, then over to Rob, then over to Dylan.
Yes,
Aircraft,
okay.
Go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. So in voice text, I linked the wiki to the Twitter files just for your information. And when we talk about collusion, Sansol, it's mostly in the Twitter files. What we've seen is things like the FBI, the Homeland Security, things like that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Hey, we found some people that just happened to break your TOS, in our opinion, and maybe you should look into that. That is not the government's job to interfere with commercial business like that. And so that's what most people on the right, when they talk about how the collusion is happening. And look,
Hey, to interrupt, but they paid them millions.
yes.
Yeah, millions. 2.8 million. Yeah.
And when it comes down to the genius of Elon Musk, look, I'm not going to sit there and pretend like he does all this stuff on his own. I work in aviation. I work in aerospace. I've done it most of my adult life, and I'll tell you, in order to do something like land a rocket on a pad, the amount of forces working against that the entire time is insane. It's some ingenious stuff. It's things that aerospace engineers and stuff and rocket engineers have been working for decades. And it is SpaceX that actually made it work first. Was it Elon Musk by himself? Hell no. But he is smart enough to find people around him. And you're right, Sansol. Social media is different than running PayPal, than running Tesla, than running SpaceX. But the fact that he is able to operate this different types of companies and do so with decent success speaks to the versatility of this man. And this isn't trying to pump him up for more than what he is.
Can I just respond?
We can give you a 15-second response, but then we got to kick over to Rob. Go ahead. Yeah, 15 seconds, sir.
So again, I remember in the first Twitter files we saw the fact that both the left and the right had inroads into Twitter to request that they take a look at things. So I don't think that this is one-sided in any way, shape, or form, and there was no request explicitly to ban someone, from what I understand. Again, if you guys can tell me which one of these fucking
Adam
Twitter things
Schiff,
to
the
click on,
latest.
I'll click on it.
You're not talking to me, right? You're talking to
I'm talking
the
to
righties, because I
I'm
blamed
talking
Donald Trump in
specific-
2018 for this shit.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you can tell me which one to click on, I can skim through it while other people are talking.
If you two want to
Like
utilize
6 and 7.
If
6
y'all-
and
if y'all-
7 are the big ones.
6 and 7 are the two to go. 8's
Okay,
where it's
I'll
their
scroll through.
psyop,
Alright,
which
so
is
let's-
equally troubling.
All right, let's
Yeah,
real quick.
I'm almost done, I'm
Sanso, if
almost
you
done,
want, okay, go ahead. Finish up.
And also, like, yes, you're right. It does take a lot of work to get those to get the rockets to land, and you're right that it does take someone that has like business acumen to like hire the correct people. But like these are like huge corporations that are like he's not making all of the hiring decisions. Like I think that he's a really good businessman. He knows how to direct like the large like aspects of the business. But when it comes to like the social media aspect, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure if I look at Twitter's stock price, I don't think that that's doing pretty good. I know for a fact Tesla's stock price has plummeted since he's took over Twitter. I don't think that there's a lot of faith in him from his own investors after his takeover of Twitter because of his actions on Twitter and because of his like lack of ability to run it. Yeah, I'm done.
Right, we're gonna hold on
real
real quick.
quick,
We gotta
John?
move. We gotta move on. I'm sorry, I gave him a response back. We gotta go to Rob, Dylan, then we can come back to you, Aircraft. Rob, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so Aircraft, you did fine, except you said Sonsol's right about something. Brief advice: never say Sonsol's right about anything. But no, talking specifically about this, we could talk about the left sort of ignoring it, and not just the left, but people that want to defend the establishment ignoring this and saying it's not exactly coercive and stuff like that. At the same time that the FBI was giving these lists, and you could see Yoel Roth in File 7 talking about he feels incredibly pressured because they kept asking Twitter to do internal investigations about Russian interference and things like that. And Twitter kept saying, we don't see a lot of Russian bots, we don't see this. And they felt uncomfortable that the FBI kept pressing them until eventually BuzzFeed and a bunch of places wrote articles that was like, why is it that Twitter's allowing this activity? And eventually they felt pressured to say, okay, maybe there is Russian influence and things like that. In addition to that, you saw Democrats routinely coming in front of Capitol Hill saying that we need to regulate these companies more for disinformation. I'm not saying the three lefties on this panel, but I'm telling you this. The majority of the Democratic Party, our mainstream media, our academia, our entertainment industry, Silicon Valley, etc., still to this day says that one of the biggest things that ever happened to our elections was 12 Russian trolls posting $100,000 of ads on Pokemon Go and Facebook, half of which weren't seen till after the election, half of which were pro-democratic causes. And under the name of that, if you watch the Twitter files, constantly they're like, the FBI says we need to take action because of the misinformation in 2016. Meanwhile, the misinformation we've seen from the Democratic Party, from establishment people over and over about Trump being a Russian asset, about COVID misinformation and things like that, they've been wrong over and over. The unequal application of this political control of our discourse in every institution is the story. I'm not going to listen to people that told me for 4 years that I had to shit my pants because a couple Russians decided to post memes on Pokemon Go, that it's not a big story that one of the most powerful tech companies in the world is working together with the FBI to censor people that they don't like. That is interference in the election, as the Time magazine article said. It is stealing of an election, and it's controlling our culture. If we don't start fighting back of all these institutions having such a control over our information, then we're going to be in a very bad spot. Last thing real quick, the left used to understand this when they talked about a gatekeeping of the mainstream media being controlled by a few corporations, but they're all for it now because Orange Man bad.
I
All right, we're
think
gonna
it's
kick it
really
over.
fucking
Hold on. Sanso, you
One
had us.
sentence.
Let's go over to Dylan, then we can go down to Sanso. All right, Dylan, you've got 2 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Man, that was a lot. Okay, so
Right.
I think the first thing I would say is I love the passion and the fire from Rob, man. He's a warrior. The passion of debate has fully encapsulated him, and I see his anger being directed towards the government here, and I hear, and if you can just listen in the way he downplays it, like, I was told from the left that we're supposed to care about like 12 Russian trolls or whatever, like posting a few memes on Facebook, and hey, they pumped both sides up. The reason why that was important, the pumping of both sides up, whether it was they wanted a certain person to win the election, it's clear who that person was, but they also did want to pump up both sides in a different way, and that way was to cause as much distrust and social chaos as possible. In the Russian military academy, there's this book taught by Alexander Dugin. People will ship posts about Alexander Dugin. See, he has a lot more influence than he does. He doesn't really have that much tremendous influence. But one thing he does have influence is the book Foundation for Geopolitics. And in that book, it argues that it would be most beneficial for the Russian state to, in the United States, cause as much social chaos, racial conflict, as much social chaos as physically possible. Hopefully to start a civil war, a race war, or something along those lines. That book is taught and every respected Russian university to their military academies, to their officer corps. Their officer corps, what does exist of their officer corps, has to read that book. It's taught to them. I do think it is notable that a political adversary, which does want to cause social chaos in the United States, is trying to spread disinformation on the internet. How we deal with that is a separate question, but I do hope we all do we can all obviously identify that there's a problem with that. Let me say my second point very quickly, because I wanted to get that out.
First, you have to say,
Fabian,
Mr. Speaker, can I get 2 more minutes?
Mr. Speaker,
I'm
can I
totally
get?
fucking with you. I'm totally fucking.
Okay, thank you.
And
Take a
all of you
motion
have
for
to
2
say,
more minutes.
I yield. I yield
I
the remainder of
appreciate
my
it.
time.
Just like last time, I hit myself hard and early when it came to substances. So I'm doing my best.
You're good, brother. Go ahead.
Fabian, you said that this issue started with Trump in this 2018 decision. I want you to talk more about that, because you came to the conclusion at the end of the day that people should be shot for what happened here. They should be put on walls and shot. And if that applies to those people, does that reasonably extend to Donald Trump if he's the person who passed the decision that started all these problems in the first place?
I'm
Hold on, real
just
quick.
giving
We got to
the-
kick it down to Sansol, and then we will go over to Fabian. I'm sorry, it was Sansol, Sparky, then Fabian. I understand you have direct question, guys, but I have to go in chronological
it's
order.
fine.
It's the only fair way.
Mine
Sansol,
is
you have
like
2 minutes,
very-
sir.
Yeah, mine
It's
is
never
very
short with
yeah.
you. You got 2 minutes, brother. Go ahead.
I'm gonna ramble. I'm gonna take all 2 minutes.
You
and then
never
ask for
take
more.
two. Yeah,
Okay,
you're good.
So first off, I think it's like so fucking funny that Rob will like completely discount the plethora of information that is out there that Russia did like try to like spread disinformation in the 2016 election. Plethora of information. There were multiple people who were indicted on charges because of the whole Russia collusion. You know what I mean? The whole Russiagate situation. But like. That's completely unbelievable. But Twitter itself could have swayed 16 million votes. Like, holy shit. Like, I think it's not unreasonable to say. I think it's not unreasonable to say that like there might be some people's votes that might have been swayed because of Twitter. But like Twitter alone being able to sway 16 million votes. Dog, holy shit! Please, 1 second.
I said Google, not
Goog-
Twitter. That's
You
what
said
he's
Google.
telling.
That's
Oh,
what
sorry. I thought it was
Google.
Fabian talking. Okay, sorry. I thought that you said Twitter.
Yeah, I was
itself
just
was-
fixing it for you. No,
Okay,
Google
okay.
was the one
I
that
was so
swayed
confused
16
for a
million
second.
votes.
I thought you were telling me to Google something.
My bad.
Now I've lost my. Now
I
I
was
lost
just
my train of thought.
I
There
was just
something
trying
else-
not to fuck up your train of thought.
Yeah,
my
Real
bad.
quick,
I
Dylan,
understand,
excuse me, Sansol, your last point was that you're saying that basically Twitter and them could not influence that many people.
No,
that
it's
the-
not that. It's not necessarily that they can't. I just think that the idea that like we're going to completely discount all of the evidence that the FBI collected over like multiple years. The second thing is that from what I understand, I think that the reason that the FBI paid Twitter that amount of money is because they're literally using Twitter's employees, their servers, and their time to be able to collect the information that they requested, right? They're legally obligated to pay them for that. You know, like we have a minimum wage that for a reason, because if you use someone's time and labor, you have to pay them. So the idea that you're going to like just like,
Badass. They
it's
should
crazy.
register as a contractor for the DHS then. I'm with you.
maybe.
I'm with you. Since they legally have to do that, then Twitter is a private contractor of the Department of
All
Homeland
right, we got to
Security.
kick it up to Sparky, then down to Fabian, then over to Rob, and then we are going to close out this final round, and then we'll move on. All right, Sparky, over to you, sir.
Sansol mentioned something about checking the stock prices of Twitter. Stock prices of Twitter do not exist because it is no longer a publicly traded company. If you really want to
you're
look at
right,
the
you're
importance,
totally right.
if you want to look at the importance of Twitter, evidently the FBI and other executive organizations decided that it was important enough to use it for psyops. If our government is using these platforms against American citizens, operating in ways that are unconstitutional and unlawful, the people who actually did that, they need to be spending time in jail, and they need to be put under it, and they need to hate life. Much like the people who on January 6th, 2 years ago, some people did some things, and well, some people are still sitting in prison right now, uncharged, without any opportunity of bail and or trial. And I think that is disgusting, and all those people should be released. If you're not going to charge them, release them, let them out, because you violated their constitutional rights, and the U.S. government should have to pay them to where they never have to work again. Why? Because F you, that's why.
Okay, you're conceding the remainder of your time?
Yes.
Roger that. Down to Fabian, then up to Rob. Fabian, you have 2 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just responding to Dylan Burns, so I don't think I need that much time. So two things. You asked me, like, should Trump also be charged with treason for increasing state power by signing into law what Congress wanted? No, right? Like, I was just describing reality, right? Which is, if you commit treason, then these are some of the punishments that are still available.
Well,
for
yeah,
treason.
I'm just saying, if you said that these people should be punished that way, and then you went to like that you got really descriptive, like, oh, treason comes with some death penalties, and you were describing those. I was like, okay, well,
Right.
if Trump was the person who laid the groundwork for that treason to occur, does that not also fall upon him?
Now, if you want to look at it from a natural law perspective, right, there are a lot of things that are bad tactics but are morally justifiable given the oppression of the state and its existence. But if we're talking about the laws that exist as of now, there's a difference between people that are directly violating people's constitutional rights secretly, and then Trump like signing into law at the behest of Congress, the expansion of Department of Homeland Security to deal with misinformation, right? Like, those are two different crimes.
Okay, but I would also still be interested in what Rob would have to say about this.
Roger,
about
speaking
Trump
of that-
laying the groundwork for the destruction of free speech.
I take it that Fabian
Yeah,
yields the remainder of its time. Rob, you have 2 minutes, and then we are going to close out the round. But I do have to pause. Joe, you didn't really say much this round. Do you have anything to add to this?
No, I unfortunately
Okay,
I
that's fine.
don't.
You don't have to.
care
You
that
don't
much
have
about
to.
Twitter.
I don't
Yeah.
ever want to pressure anybody. If you and panelists, just so you know, if you don't know a lot about a topic, I am not going to pressure or demand. Like, that's fine. If you don't know a lot, that's
Lies.
the whole-
You just pressured him. You were like, what do you got to say, Joe?
Well, I just want to make sure that I'm not missing any signs here, because I've been watching various different social. And by the way, if anybody in the audience wants to tweet out a question for the panelists at the end of the stream, you can tweet me out at John Burke Rants and hashtag it Drunken Debates. You can ask the panel anything. Again, appropriate, please. Again, John Burke Rants on Twitter, hashtag it Drunken Debates. All right, Rob, over to you for 2 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, to answer Dylan's question real quick, yeah, I think Trump is largely, I'm not saying shoot people and stuff like that, but largely to blame, because what Trump did was he outed the corruption by the mere existence, because the people that have a stranglehold in the control of the both parties that are part of this establishment, they didn't want a potential outsider like Bernie or Trump. And so the mere fact that Trump won the nomination and won the presidency forced them to go into overdrive, doing everything they could to sabotage him. And Trump foolishly, although he outed that, not because of 4D chess, because he won, he foolishly did nothing to the steps that would have been required to stop that, and instead do things like in 2008 passing these laws that allowed the Department of Homeland Security to have more influence on this. He continued with Section 230 and a bunch of other stuff. Now, to Sonsol's point, I find it ridiculous to anyone that's listening. First, the idea that Google would be able to manipulate millions of votes isn't that far-fetched, and it's not that far-fetched that all of these institutions combined pushing the same way would be able to manipulate our culture and our elections that much. How much flow of information are you getting that was positive to Trump, say, on network television or late-night comedy? So the places that people were going were places like Google trying to do information, places like Facebook, places like Twitter, and when all of those institutions are going in the same direction, it's no surprise that that's able to influence our culture and ideas. Now, you ignore the Twitter files and the obvious how that would influence elections, and the FBI putting their thumb on the scale would be able to influence more than any foreign country. And Dylan also talks about the importance of Russia. Again, what we're talking about here is 12 Russians that were initially charged for $100,000 worth of ad buys on Facebook and Pokemon Go. Any of you all change your vote because you saw a Russian misinformation in 2016 when there was $1 billion being spent in the election? Of course not. You didn't do this. This is something that's used for control, because they're saying, what are all these examples, son? So give me some of the examples you're talking about, the litany of misinformation. I read this, the Mueller report. I'm quite familiar with it. I didn't see that litany that you're talking about. I did see people like Joe Biden running, saying that Donald Trump said Nazis were good people. I saw the mainstream media spread misinformation after misinformation about Trump and Trump supporters, and that has more control than anything we're talking about Russia being able to control. Last thing I'll say is this. That's fine. We could look at foreign misinformation. Every country's going to do it, our allies and our enemies, but they will never be able to influence our elections as much as our own media, our own corporations, and our own intel agencies that are all working in tandem to censor people that are critical of the establishment.
All right, gentlemen, that is going. Sonsol, I know you got something to say, but well,
Can
I'll
I-
give
can I
you.
make a bet
I will
really
give. I
quick?
will. I will give you a
Can I
30-second
put some
response.
money on the line? Rob, do you
That's
want to
between
put
you and Rob.
money
That's
down?
between
Do
you
you
and
want to
Rob.
put money down that there was zero evidence of any kind of Russian interference in the 2016 election?
No, my point was you said there was a litany of it. I said if it was so severe, give me examples. Of course, Russia interfered. So did North
we
Korea.
didn't
So
get
did
the
the
topics
UK.
before the
So
panel,
did
so I don't
Spain.
have, like,
So
a
did Canada.
document
So did
ready.
Mexico. No, what I'm saying is interference from all these countries exists. Of course, all our enemies and allies. My point is that it's massively overblown in an election where our own media, our own intel agencies, our own institutions are putting their thumb on the scale. What a country like Russia is able to do. By the way, those 12 Russians that people talked about being arrested, charges were dropped against them because the judge said there was zero proof they were operating at the behest of the Russian government. They just have to be Russian
that,
people.
Like Mexico was like doing some sort of like targeted like campaign to try and influence our election in the same way that Russia was?
No, I know two countries are doing it in the same way.
So there was no targeted campaign by the
China.
Mexican government to try and influence our
China.
election for their
I'm
for
sure
their
that
purposes.
the politicians in Mexico
wow,
was
these
using
guys aren't even
their
arguing about
state
China.
social media
China,
accounts.
Sure,
to
but you
push
don't have
for the
any kind of
candidates that
evidence.
they
You're
wanted.
just kind of pulling out fucking countries' names
No,
out of
I'm
your ass. Oh, so like
I'm not.
so oh,
Okay, then give me
so
the
you- so you
examples.
do-
Tell me with the Russian. Tell me the targeted Russia influence. Go ahead.
Wait, hold on. I'm asking you specifically because you're the one that says that you have all this knowledge. Again, none of us got any of the topics beforehand, so I don't have a fucking document in front of me. Otherwise, I would have this information. But you're specifically saying that you do know specifically that Mexico was doing the same kind of, or not in the same exact way, but at least trying to collude in our elections in the same, or in the like same vein as Russia.
I'm saying it makes sense that every country has one individuals within that country that want to
Okay,
see
so
the
you have
position
no
of the
evidence,
leader.
and you're just, like,
real
pulling it out
quick,
of your ass.
and
Okay,
neither
cool.
do you. If I was making the claim that I didn't
my
care about the Twitter files and the FBI collusion with social media to censor people because Russia, I think I damn well have some proof of what that
The
interference
Mexicans
was.
literally
No,
hacked into our border
I
wall, and now they
didn't
opened it
know.
up,
I
and that's where all
didn't know
those
was the
fucking Mexican
topic.
migrants
I
are coming
didn't
from.
know.
Oh
All
my
right,
god.
gentlemen,
come
just
on.
ceasefire. The round is over. We're going to go into 1 minute closing statements. As I said before, no pop shots at each other. If you do, your next exit will be you won't get one. All right. So, gentlemen, you've got 1 minute on the board to basically, if you change your mind, you can vocalize that, or if you're still believing the same, that's fine too. You got 1 minute. We're gonna go ahead and start with Joe. Do you even need one?
Yeah, I got some thoughts. I can do
Okay,
those.
Joe. Let's go ahead and start with you. You got 1 minute, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this type of discourse and these type of exchanges are things that need to exist on Twitter. I think people need to participate more in debates and discussions like that. I think Twitter is still, even after all this bickering back and forth, it's still a great avenue for that, and still a great place for people to exchange ideas. My only concern, though, I mean, there was some conversation about free speech absolutism and like absolute free speech, and like I think everybody articulated pretty well that like, yeah, we don't really want that. Like in a world where that would exist, you would see like Jewel ads being advertised on Disney Plus, and then people on Twitter like basically advocating for the death or violence of others just left and right with impunity. But it seems like nobody really took that like fixed position that would be good on Twitter, so that was kind of cool. I didn't have a lot there, but it was good talks.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and push over to Dylan Burns, sir. You've got 1 minute. Go right ahead.
Well, my camera's off.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
It's
Keep
kind of
going.
hard. It's kind of hard for me to not respond to other people, but I'll just, when it comes to this idea of Russian interference, the reason people cared about Russian interference isn't because just another country could possibly have could have an impact on our politics. In any way. It's the way that they were trying to have an influence on our politics by specifically trying to have a disproportionate impact through the spreading of misinformation on one candidate winning over another. But it isn't just that, because that's all that's usually brought up, and people say, oh, it was just the 12 people. It wasn't just the 12 people. It was there's the Internet Research Agency, and there was more that Russia was doing there. But there's also the fact that they were trying to pump up people on both sides. Why would Russia want to pump up people on both sides, as well as having one person win over another in an election? Why? They wanted to pump up both sides because they wanted the most violent and most vitriolic language to be used, so people would go out on the street and beat the shit out of each other, or possibly people would be inspired to go out and get politically violent, cause chaos in the United States. That is an issue of importance. I don't think it should be downplayed. There's a reason why people care about that, rather than what diplomatic political influence Mexico might have on us. There's a bunch of other things I wanted to talk about, but it was most of you responding to and doing pot shots, so I'll just wait till next topic.
Roger that. All right, Sansol, down to you, sir. You have 1 minute. Go right ahead.
It's gonna be really hard not to take pot shots, but I'm gonna.
I know.
This
I
is
know.
what
Do
I'll
your
say.
best.
I think that when it comes to the Twitter files, again, like it's really hard for me to like keep up with like how many there are because there's like multiple different journalists that are leaking or reporting on these things. And I just haven't been able to keep up with them. I'll be interested to read through the like entire like compiled list now that I know where to find it. But from everything that I've heard so far, it doesn't sound like any of the things that they're talking about are like illegal or any kind of like explicit like horrible thing that the government is doing. Like, of course, the conservatives on the panel are going to like heavily disagree with me on this. I don't know if that would be considered a pot shot, but
As long as it's not specifically at somebody.
yeah, well, it was. So, yeah, I think that like ultimately, I don't think that like the Twitter files, like the ones that I've seen, and I've seen like the most consequential, according to people, like linked to me in my stream chat while I'm talking to people, and like when I read them, the actual like screen cap versus what the person's saying about what the screen cap says, they say two very different things. So I guess like I'm going to be very interested to actually read through the full thing and see what they say. But I find it hard to believe that psyops are happening on the American people in the way that they're being represented here. I'm being told that it's actually just like lobbying and it's legal and registered and it's not like psyops, but I'll just have to see.
All right. Aircraft Sparky, over to you, sir. You got 1 minute. Go ahead.
Look, when it comes to Elon and the genius he is or whatever, honestly, I don't think any of us really care about that. The idea that everyone should be upset about Russia interfering with our election, look inwards. Hate to break it to you, no one interferes with our elections or anyone else's elections more than the United States government. Three of us on this panel, to include our wonderful host, have been part of that arm of the United States government, the enforcement arm. And look, I don't really care if Russia interferes with our election. I'm kind of big on free speech in that deal. I don't like it, but if it was that big of a deal, the warmongers over in D.C. would have been calling for blood. They would have been calling for war. We interfere with other countries' elections all the time. It's kind of what America does. That is actually, that's what the Twitter files have exposed more than anything. Is the true enemy of the people happens to be the United States federal government. Thank you so much.
God damn, that got me hard. Wait, real quick. I know you were in the military. Who else is in the military?
Yeah, dog, I gave vaccines and blood draws. Like, relax.
Oh shit, Fabi, I didn't know you were in. What
I
branch?
was a 68 whiskey in the
Oh,
army.
no shit. How long ago?
And I was Air Force and Army.
Nobody cares about the Air Force. We're talking Army. No, I'm fucking with it. Well, that's awesome.
I
to
got
have
out.
more-
I got out in 2015. I went in for college money, and
Okay.
that's exactly what I got.
There you go. Nice. Okay.
I'm no fucking hero, boys.
We'll go ahead and kick it down to Fabian, then up to Rob. So, Fabian, you've got 1 minute. Closing arguments. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna close with a really, really hot take. 9/11 happened. Okay, 9/11 happened. Yeah, and you know what happened? The
Right.
Patriot Act. Conservatives and a bunch of Democrats too, right? Gave us the Patriot Act. You know, the same Patriot Act that's being used to put signifiers on parents that do too much protesting at school events because of, you know, queer theory and things like that in schools, right? And so, yeah, some Russian misinformation and buying of ads happened. And just like 9/11, right, they use that as an impetus to gain more power, more control, censor your speech more, right? There's a big difference between the Russians buying ads and having bots trying to stoke the flames, and Google conveniently deciding that, like, after Kamala Harris gets taken down by Tulsi Gabbard, that we have to make sure that no one can reach her website that night, and we have to kill her campaign overnight, right? Like, one of them is really big. Shadow banning is huge. The other, not so much. So Dylan is right. Absolutely right, right? It's what we do. And so what we need to do is we need to put a lot of these people that committed treason in jail, and we need proper enforcement of Section 230 in the lower courts so that these companies can be sued when they violate their own TOS and they violate their contracts.
All right. Final. Rob, you've got 1 minute for closing arguments, sir. Go right ahead.
reason that so many in the left, the Democratic Party and their media are ignoring the Twitter files is because it proves exactly what people like me have been saying, and they kept calling conspiracy theories, that the federal government was working in collusion with these tech companies in order to put their thumb on the scale to affect our culture and affect our elections. Now that we find out that it's happening, people in these groups are either ignoring it or they're saying, oh, this isn't news. We knew it all along. This is the play they always make. Call you a conspiracy theorist, then they say, oh, we knew it was happening. It's not a big deal. It is true that there's a lot of information coming out. That should be even more shocking. It should be shocking to every person here, left, right, or anywhere in between, that our federal government is spreading its own disinformation. It is controlling people's First Amendment rights. It's incentivizing by giving money to these companies and then having the Democrats in Congress threaten them if they don't comply in order to control narratives to make sure that the same establishment people maintain power. It is true that all countries, including Russia, interfere in our elections. That is something that's worth looking at, but they're blowing it out of proportion, like they're blowing January 6th out of proportion, and like Fabian said earlier with the Patriot Act and things like that. They use this as a perpetual excuse to censor ideas they don't like, even ideas such as benign as we shouldn't lock down kids over COVID because all science says we shouldn't. Those are being deleted because of the auspices of we have to stop disinformation, like in 2016. The election was stolen by these people in these institutions, all working in tandem with our institutions such as the FBI and other, the Department of Homeland Security.
Fortified. It
Oh, I'm
wasn't
sorry,
stolen. The
A
election was
shadowy
fortified.
cabal.
All right, gentlemen. All right, gentlemen. That
Fortified.
concludes the first round of Drunken Debates. Congratulations, everybody has survived it so far. Cheers to you if you choose to drink. If you choose not to, completely up to you. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a real quick 3-minute break for you to use the restroom, refresh your drink, whatever you got to do. And while you, and that begins now. So while I have the rest of the audience's attention, while our panelists go and relieve themselves and refreshing their wine coolers and such, I'd like to turn you on to this sponsorship of this podcast, of this Drunken Debates, is shellshockcbd.com. We have Delta 8. You like getting high? Dylan Burns is up there puffing away. He likes getting high. I'm kind of high right now. We've got the Delta 8 gummies. These are banned in roughly 17 states, but as a result, we have the Delta 9 gummies, which are not. Yes, these will get you high. They also come with a money-back guarantee. Let's get some music going. There we go. These come with a money-back guarantee. We have amazing products. This is developed by yours truly, formulated by yours truly. 15 milligrams of CBD and 5 milligrams of melatonin to help you sleep. These are THC-free. You will not pop on a drug test. We have hundreds of amazing reviews on this. These are called, again, the Rack Out Gummies. We also sponsor many different podcasts, from Gavin McGinnis to Tim Pool. It is shellshockcbd.com, the fastest growing, largest veteran-owned brand of CBD in the nation. This is true. Again, we have things for sleep. We have things for anxiety. We have our CBDO. We have our teas. We even have a CBD beard balm. Yes, CBD is great for skin. We also have our tattoo creams that just came out. We're excited for that. That's in the topical. Just go up to the shop, head on down to, say, for example, CBD topicals. Click on that. You've got the tattoo balm, $20. This is CBD infused. You've got the THC-free relaxation bundle or the THC relaxation bundle. It's really up to you. Yes, these will get you stoned. Yes, you will fail a drug test. Please keep that in mind. So again, go check it out. Roll on, roll out. It is a menthol CBD blend. Also a topical thunder. Same, but it's a salve. You can check those out, and many, many more wonderful products. So again, that is shellshockcbd.com. We appreciate your love and support. And lastly, but most certainly not least, if you enjoy the show, please donate at our locals. This podcast is done on the Rumble page, which also owns locals. It's basically the Twitch version of being able to subscribe to a podcast. We appreciate your love and support there. Without your donations, we could do this, but I'd rather get paid for it, because you know what? We're providing you some great quality entertainment. And like I said, all of our panelists are going to get free Shell Shock products upon completion of the debates. So again, we thank you for tuning in. And again, tweet us out at John Burke Rants, hashtag Drunken Debates, for any questions you have for the panelists. All right, panelists, are we all back? Missing Joe Lewis. So while we're waiting, I've got some questions that have been tweeted out. This is going to be open forum. This is not part of the debate. Thank you, baby. First question we've got is essentially, who should be the Speaker of the House and why? Let's start with that one. It's open to anybody.
I'm actually super curious to hear from the conservatives on this, because I have no idea what the Republicans are going to do with the shit show that's been going on in the House.
I mean, I wouldn't say that it's really a shit show. This is what democracy actually looks like. It's not a hive mind, a cult following one thing.
Sparky,
hey,
that's coke.
no, you don't have
That's
to. You don't have to
Coke,
like
Sparky.
it.
Ineffective
Look,
Sparky.
one of us. One of
Wait,
us.
wait,
I get it. I get it,
Sparky.
man.
Okay. I'm not saying that the process isn't working as intended. The checks and balances are doing what they're supposed to do. I'm not saying democracy is crumbling, but to say,
Not at all.
this is just democracy is kind of a cope and a misdirect from the, let's just say, chaos and leadership that the Republican Party is currently experiencing. What the fact is that they have 4 votes in the House. Their red wave did not manifest. It was a red trickle, to put it lightly. And in the Senate, they even lost the seat. And so now they have a very tight majority, and they're going to have to run a very tight ship if they want to get everything done this year, even if they just want to stop some of Biden's agenda from getting through, because they still control the executive branch, they still control the Senate. And there are a lot of Republicans, especially the MAGA movement, and especially the most unhinged among them, who have a lot of problems with Kevin McCarthy. Some of them valid, some of them not valid. I think some of it, when it comes to like time to review bills and stuff like that, that's perfectly valid. I think some of the other ones a little less valid, and I think some of the people who are lobbying against them also seem to be on the fringes. But they are being led on the nose by these people, and they can't really do anything to stop it. They either have to compromise or pick a new speaker, or suffer the possible reality.
2 minutes, Dylan Burns.
Okay, 2 minutes. I know. Again,
Free
possible
form,
reality.
free form.
One last thing.
Demon
last thing.
Mama's bad.
There is a
Damn,
very,
Dylan, come on.
very small amount, the very small chance that Democrats might try to find a very, very milquetoast Republican and give it a shot.
I don't
All
want a milquetoast Republican as a speaker. You know who I want
do.
the speaker? I
Hold on, gentlemen. I don't mean to cut you off, but gentlemen, this blends into a future topic, so let's not get too heavily
Fair.
into this.
Justin Amash for speaker. That's all I got to
Now,
say.
I do want to. I don't want to apologize, but I want to explain to my left-leaning panelists that the GOP is heavily in the news right now. So these topics are going to be favoring GOP talking points. It's not any kind of slant towards the left. It's just that if the left was primarily in the spotlight right now for a Speaker of the House position, we'd be talking more about that. All right. So here's the question, gentlemen, panelists. We are returning from this break. All right, here we go. The midterms are over, and the red wave, I think we by and large can agree on this panel, did not hit. I feel like the red wave did not hit to the extent that we projected it to be. That does not mean that there was not a red trickle like Dylan Burns had previously said. With that being said, Republicans took some losses, but they did manage to take control of the House. With the speaker position being heavily contested, where do you see the GOP going into 2023 and 2024 presidential runoff? This is a very all-encompassing topic. I know this favors the right, but I also know our leftist panels pay attention to that because it is part of the whole political spectrum. So, with that being said, does anyone, by show of hand, need me to repeat the question? Everybody's good. All right. So, we're going to put 1 minute. This is intro points. 1 minute on the clock, starting with Fabian, our libertarian.
I gotta go first again.
You
Fucker.
got.
All right.
I'm sorry. You went first last time. We'll start with Rob. Rob, you've got 1 minute on the clock. Go ahead. Fuck you, Fabian. You're out. Rob, go ahead, sir.
I can go. Like,
Rob, you're muted. Rob, you're muted. You got 1 minute. Go ahead,
All
sir.
that talking speed wasted right there.
But the handsomeness is still there. But
You're good.
I think
Go
when
ahead.
it comes to presidential politics, I think DeSantis is still going to be the front runner. But what's going to happen is there are going to be a lot of these holdouts that end up voting for McCarthy that are going to say Trump influenced us to come to the table. And so Trump's going to try to parlay this into some sort of victory. Look, to kind of talk about this in a broad spectrum, this is exactly what all of those rebel progressives that so many of our left-wing panelists are going to like should have been doing with Force the Vote. Instead, all these rebel left-wingers, what they do is they listen to the corporatist Democrats do whatever they tell them every time it's important. Bernie Sanders is all of a sudden a war hawk. They're backing Nancy Pelosi. They're backing Mr. Corporatist Hakeem Jeffries. This is Republicans actually having some spine. As far as changes that'll be made, no. It'll be the same old bullshit, just like it always is, where the Republican leadership is going to say, we're going to do things differently. We're going to go after corruption. And what we'll get is Lindsey Graham writing strongly worded letters. We'll get some kind of Benghazi commission that holds no one accountable, and it'll be the same old bullshit. I applaud that at least a few people stood up and pointed out the puppeteer for what it is, that these people in leadership in the Republican and Democratic Party don't give a shit about their constituents at all, and it's all a big horse trading game. They don't care about you. It's just about maintaining and consolidating power.
All right, we're going to kick it over to Dylan Burns. Sir, you've got 1 minute for introductory remarks. Go ahead.
Okay, so was the topic the presidential race, or was it just this?
All-encompassing. GOP,
Oh,
House.
okay,
It's
okay.
all-encompassing, sir. I know it's a broad thing, but it
Yeah,
also encourages
I got a
lot of
little.
debate.
I just got a little confused by Rob because I thought it was presidential.
It can be
Okay.
about whatever you want it to be about, sir. Go right ahead. Do you need me to repeat it, or are you good?
Yeah, repeat it one more time for me. That would be
Absolutely. Stand by real quick, gentlemen. Let me repeat the question. The question is, the midterms are over and the red wave did not hit. Republicans took some losses, but they did manage to take the House. With the speaker position being heavily contested, where do you see the GOP going into 2023-24 presidential runoff?
Got you. Okay, so my
All
camera.
right, 1 minute is yours, sir. Go ahead. Don't worry about the camera. You're
So forced to vote was a horrific idea, and the problem with forced to vote wasn't that they wanted to like ask for demands from Nancy Pelosi, is that they wanted to expend a bunch of political capital, get themselves make themselves the target of endless political attacks to get a vote on something that wouldn't pass, because Medicare for all is not going to pass. There's just not enough votes for it. So why should you fall on your political sword and be made the fool of, like you know, Matt Gaetz and many others in media are being made the fool of right now, expending a lot of political capital and making this huge mess for something that wasn't even possible. Why do that? It doesn't make sense. Force a vote did not make sense. So I have to push back hard on Rob when it comes to force a vote. If they wanted to demand more, stronger committee positions or some other policy concession, that's one thing. But force the vote for Medicare for all, which was what the Jimmy Dores and everybody else was pushing, that was a bad idea. As for this, I think we're gonna see basically 2 years of Republican chaos with Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boeberts, and a few radicals making a lot of a big mess of the party.
All right, we're going to kick over to Aircraft Sparky. You've got 1 minute for your intro statement, sir. Go ahead.
Right now, I believe Ilhan Omar today actually said, look, one thing she learned from Matt Gaetz and the Freedom Caucus is that about 5 people can actually disrupt a lot. And she was actually looking forward to when the Democrats take over. So look, when it comes down to it, the Democrats are going to be doing the same thing. What do I see for the GOP over the next couple of years? Well, it's simple. Nothing. Because every time the GOP gets any power, they give a lot of promises and they blue ball everyone. They don't do a damn thing because they're spineless twits. All they are is nothing but speed bumps for the Democrats. I would love nothing more than to see not a single damn law passed and for the government to be shut down, because nothing can get past the Senate because of infighting, the House because of infighting. I am sick and tired of the thousands of laws that we have that no one can keep track of. We need to have less laws. For every one law that we pass, we should subtract 2 or 3. That's just my opinion.
All right, we're going to go down to, we're going to go to Joe. You've got 1 minute on the clock, sir. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I never thought, I mean, Republicans promised an obstructionist government, but I never thought they would just be obstructing themselves. So that's been kind of exciting to see in real time. Personally, I think that I'm kind of like to hearken to the first statement I had, that there needs to be better internalized debate. I think that if you had proper internalized debate within your own party, you'd be able to parse out these things in such a way where McCarthy can like make concessions based on previous information. That's not to say he doesn't have information about what candidates advocate for, but there's definitely seems to be a gap in information and stuff. And again, it might something work out for everybody, but it remains to be seen for me. You have like a tiny minority of Republicans from ruby red districts sticking it to McCarthy like it's been this like ultimate power play. And maybe it is, but it doesn't seem like a byproduct of the, I don't know. It's kind of interesting to me. I will say though, like long term, I think that Republicans have something in parental rights. And I think they need to start taking advocacy groups like Moms for Liberty seriously. Granted, like they've been doing incredibly well on school boards, and if they're able to tap into this political moment for them, that would be something very advantageous, because Democrats still don't think that organizations that are parental rights groups, mommy bear organizations, are actually real. So I think in the next 2 years that's something they could capitalize on, but that remains to be seen. So I'd say like if I'm a Republican right now, I'd be pushing for parental rights, prioritization of internal debate, pressuring Democrats on their funding and war spending on Ukraine, and then positioning candidates that could be healthy choice for their evolving electorate to challenge Donald Trump.
Roger that. Over to Sansol. You've got 1 minute, sir. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I think that this is really interesting to watch it play out, to see the very, very hardcore pro-Trump side versus what I like, for lack of a better term, like the establishment or the corporate Republicans kind of duking it out for control. After Trump lost the 2020 election, it's really interesting to see like where the Republican goes without that figurehead at the top, you know. In terms of like the force the vote cope that was just said earlier, the reason why force the vote was so stupid and why this action is so stupid, although I can actually say it's a little bit more understandable on the Republican side than it was on the liberal side, because in the liberals' case, they were pushing for one of the largest pieces of legislation that this country would ever pass in its entire fucking history, the single payer health care, which was never going to pass with a Republican Senate. Right now we have a Democrat Senate, and the Republicans are pushing for what concessions? Largely small ones, and it's largely just for virtue signaling reasons. They're showing a massive disorganization in their party. They're not showing that they have any cohesiveness whatsoever to be able to govern, and it's a pretty big embarrassment on the Republican side. I've thought that McCarthy was a big shoo-in for the speaker role, but I guess we're gonna have to see if Matt Gaetz's Hail Mary to get Trump to be the speaker will pan out.
All right. Last, most certainly not least, we've got Fabian. Fabian, you've got 1 minute, and then we'll go into open discussions. Fabian, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I mean, we're certainly seeing like a populism. You hear this word all the time. You're seeing populism come forward in the Republican side, and the cool thing about populism is like a really sophomoric ideology, right? Like it's just they're bad guys, they're the elites, but it usually wakes people up to the problems, and then new ideologies and political philosophies then emerge from that. Sometimes it's communist, sometimes it's fascist, sometimes it's libertarian, sometimes it's a new form of constitutional conservatism, whatever it may be. And so it'll be interesting to see what that does in the conservative side. In terms of the red wave, I think the biggest thing is that, GOP backers, spent millions trying to get rid of like Carrie Lake and trying to primary people and trying to get rid of Blake Masters. They ran 2 Republicans against each other in Alaska, right? They did tons of things. They wasted millions and millions of dollars trying to get rid of the populist movement to keep the corrupt grand old party. And so that's why you have a red trickle for the most part. The second reason is that Gen Z is culturally Marxist. It just is. Like the new generation coming up is full of Marxists. Right, like even if they're not full blown, like hammer and sickle, their philosophy, their worldview, the way that they approach things is a dialectic, and
Gentlemen,
I think that is
entered into open debates.
2 reasons. Oh, sorry,
No. You keep going. I'm just saying that now.
But I just want to say, yeah. So I just want to say Joe-Lewis is absolutely right that if the Republicans want to do anything, and if DeSantis wants to have any success moving forward, they have to focus on both the 40-year plan and the immediate plan, which is understanding that social emotional learning that's in 33% of elementary schools, and that critical theory and critical pedagogy has completely taken over the education system, and getting behind mama bear movements like Moms for Liberty and Lisa Logan and things like that, and DeSantis in the way that he did HB 1557, and even though it's stupid in my opinion from an optics position, great, like putting Christopher Rufo in charge of shit, right? Like pushing back against the education system is the way to go, not fucking arguing about abortion. Like you got your Supreme Court win, you should have shut the fuck up before the midterms, but you dumbasses wanted to push immediately because you're the
Lindsey
GOP.
Graham wanted,
Yeah.
Lindsey
The
Graham
dandy
wanted
from
to
South
Grand Old
Carolina.
Party.
Hold on real quick. Joe's got his hand up. Gentlemen, don't forget hands up. I got Joe, I got Dylan, I got Sparky. Go ahead, Joe, and then Rob. Gotcha.
Well, that's the thing, Fabian, because respectfully, you're actually incorrect. It's closer to 50% of public schools have some level of SEL in their educational environments. So it's like 60 some odd percent of principals reporting it, 50% of teachers reporting it. I think that
I apologize. I was using Second Step's number. Just that.
sure, yeah. Second Step's like
33. I apologize.
I think the 30s within like their I don't know. It's all weird. The reporting's kind of strange, but it's whatever. It's cool. To respond directly, sorry about that. It's that I think that they reveal something that Republicans have always been good at, which is actual grassroots politic. and reaching important parts of their electorate at where they're at. That can lead to them having very strong electorates. Like evangelical Christian women is an electorate that they don't have to worry about. Shout out to Concerned Women for America. Moms for Liberty is trying to be a captured electorate. They have a diversity problem that they're going to have to sort of figure out, or just ignore them like they usually do. So maybe it doesn't matter because they may have a political power and enough parents with influence in spaces that matter. But you can't run into the trap like what happened in Virginia, where Glenn Youngkin sided with parents, but in the end he knew he couldn't do as much as he promised, and he got called out for his bullshit. And I think that parents, especially in movements like Concerned Women for America, like Moms for Liberty, are able to hold their politicians accountable, and that's not something I think Democrats have been able to crack into quite yet.
Let's kick it over to Dylan.
Shout out to Real Moms of Loudoun County. I think were the ones that really were like pressuring Youngkin for like basically just
Women's Republican Club. Yeah, it's the largest GOP organization in Virginia.
Dylan, over to you, sir. You
For
got 2
women,
minutes. Go
excuse
ahead.
me.
So there's two things I want to say. Let's see if I can keep my mind on track long enough to say two things and not forget them immediately. So the first thing is Fabian Liberty. I understand this appeal to this new generation is being taught to be Marxist. You know, the reason why, and there was recent data I think published by the Financial Times about how millennials are just not aging out of their left-wing views. Like previous generations, like Gen X did, and I have a reason to suspect Gen Z is going to be the same thing.
Gen Z is like they're not following the
so.
normal trajectory.
Gen
like,
Z
where
and
you conserve,
and millennials, right? But the thing
Gen
is,
Z are plateauing. Yeah.
I don't think it's because these people are just being indoctrinated into leftist views. I think a lot of it has to do with the economic conditions and the social conditions that many people were brought up in. Many Gen Zers, like me, were brought up during the Black Lives Matter movement. And that movement, that I would say had an ideological effect on a lot of us. But also the low rates of home ownership options for Gen Zers and millennials, I think had an impact on them economically. I think the financial crisis has had a mighty economic impact on how, you know, my generation and millennials view economics. I think that large amounts of college debt, that's a big motivator for people our age. We can't just like amount it all to, well, oh, these kids are just being taught wrong. If they just listen to our arguments, if they just listen to our arguments, they would jump with us. I'm just saying. I'm not
doing a univariate analysis. I'm just saying, like, I would never say that it's just what's being taught in
Fabian,
school.
I don't think anybody in anybody's communities knows what Unitarian. What was that? You got to run that back, friend.
I said univariate.
Univariate. I don't think anybody in any chats knows what that means.
So I just want to
not even Dylan. But go on.
Do you give credence then to what I'm saying, that these economic conditions are also something that's pushing them further and further to the left, as many of them feel like they just don't have the opportunities that their parents used to, definitely when it comes to things like unions, which a lot of young people are getting really, really attached to unions, as you can see it on social media.
So I would say,
and in public space.
I would say that your philosophy responds how you look at those things, right? And so while, not to be a Marxist here, but the material conditions have an effect on reality, right? But how you respond to those things is going to be based off of your values, your belief system, and how you approach the world. I would say most millennials and Gen Z don't know a goddamn thing about economics at all. And hell, half the economists don't know a damn thing about economics, right? So like when we got hit with the financial crisis, it's perfectly reasonable to say these Wall Street bankers are evil, down with the 1% and the wealthy. And, just a basic amount of economic knowledge would be like, yeah, why did the government bail these people out? Why did the government steal our money to give to these people? Like, why did the government create the situation where these people were allowed to operate with impunity? Like, why did the financial regulators magically fail while there was an open door, kind of revolving door policy between giant corporations that have bought our government and the people that are supposed to be regulating them, right? And so, like, which aspect you choose to focus on, right, is going to be based upon the philosophy that you have, but the impetus for anger and rage is going to be those material conditions, right? It's going to be rent going up or food being more expensive or gas being more expensive.
I'm kind of confused, Scott.
Hold on real quick. We got to kick it over to Sparky, then Rob, then we can do Joe.
Yeah, I'll do
Sparky,
on the back
go
end,
ahead,
that's
sir.
fine.
You've got 2 minutes.
And to address what Fabian's talking about with the generational movement towards the right with age and stuff, I honestly blame a lot of this on my generation, Gen X, because we refuse to take responsibility for our actions. I mean, we are the clerks generation, for Christ's sakes. I think that is one of the best describers of my generation, unfortunately. And when you
It's so accurate.
it is. You know, we're sitting there screwing around talking about
Fucking Gen
Sausage
Xers.
Park and shit. Yeah, Gen X is the problem. We allowed the boomers to keep running things too long. We didn't take the mantle, and now the millennials are coming into their own. And look, they haven't been shown how
Starts
to,
with the greatest
how to
generation.
progress.
The greatest generation didn't raise the boomers appropriately.
Maybe you know, we could talk about that would be interesting, but to get back
Blaming
on
Sparky. Keep blaming Sparky and his.
yeah look I'll tell you straight up, I avoided responsibility like the freaking plague. I'm 45 years old. I'm not even in a management position, and a lot of that's because of choice, but it's something that I'm realizing is a problem in the American workforce and in the American family, is the fact that we didn't teach our children enough self-responsibility. And that's why things like student debt and home ownership, that's why BlackRock in China owns a lot of our land and not individual people.
All right, we're gonna kick it over to Rob, and then to Joe, then to Sansol. Rob, you've got 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Two things to talk about real quick, what they're talking about here. Dylan, I don't disagree with you, but the problem is these material conditions, the social emotional learning gives the answer to why this is occurring, and we don't all agree on the answer. If this indoctrination was a capitalist framework or a libertarian framework being indoctrinated to kids in schools, then they would still say, I don't have the same opportunities as my parent, and the reason is because we don't have a more libertarian capitalist philosophy. So just because the problem exists, that might motivate people to seek an answer, but the indoctrination they're getting is why that's going. And that has a lot to do with being able to blame normal people like me, people like Aircraft, people like Fabian that are right-wing, libertarian, conservative, because while we were concerned about winning elections, maybe not so much Fabian, I won't lump him in, but like while the Republicans were
I
worried
just
about
wanted Blake
winning
Masters to
elections,
win. That's it.
yeah, while they were worried about winning elections, these establishment sort of Marxist type people were worried about influencing our culture and taking over the education system, which they've been doing since the 50s, and they're being incredibly successful. Now, the other thing I want to talk about force the vote is, it is true that force the vote would have been, I could, if John's cool with it, I'd give you a chance. Yeah, I'd give you a chance for something.
So I really don't think it's just that their conditions are just pushing them in this direction, and then the government is like indoctrinating them this way, and that's why they're becoming more left wing. I don't think that that's the main motivator, if it's a motivator at all, really pushing them in that direction. I would think it's more material conditions, and they see those same material conditions that other people face in, say, let's say the United Kingdom or in other countries, for example in Europe, when it comes to, for whether it's their education, whether it's their healthcare, and they're like, wow, those protections that other governments afford them when they go through many of the economic crises that we did in 2008 or past then with COVID, we don't have those same opportunities. We would like those same opportunities. And the vast majority of American politicians and the vast majority of definitely those in the Republican Party are not favorable towards pushing towards that viewpoint that the vast majority of young people want. If you ask young people their ideological leaning, yes, they're extremely left-wing, but if you ask them about the world they want to build in this country, the world they want to build is very similar to what they have done in many European countries like Sweden, Denmark, Scandinavia. These are the nations that are always brought up because they have a general idea of where economically we want to move to, because they have a success story that they can point at. A success story.
But again,
that
that's
they can reflect
success.
off of.
That
Please
success
don't
story.
mention the Nordic model. The Nordic model is more capitalist than the U.S.
I'm not.
Right.
Wait. Let me be clear. I'm not saying. But that's the thing. You're saying that they're all socialist Marxists, but the main things they're going to point to towards systems that they want to copy are not even necessarily communist systems. None of them are asking the Soviet Union to come back. Well, very few of them.
Young people are retarded. Check. Got it.
Right. And the reason that they have those beliefs is because people that they trust and that are educating them are inundating those beliefs into them. If we gave Fabian here total control of our education system for 15 years, I bet you'd start to see a lot of people saying, we have these problems and we need more of a system where there's less government intervention, like, foundational United States type stuff, or even beyond that, right? So saying that they're pointing there and they don't understand what
your
those children
children
are. And social
I will guide them
is
towards
a
the yellow
Marxist
light.
it is based in a Marxist philosophy. So they're not being trained, for example, the horrors of the Soviet Union, the horrors of communist China, and how bad it was for people. Instead, they're being painted this rosy picture by people that are using Marxist
What are you
indoctrination.
talking
that are in
about?
all these
Are you
schools.
insane? That is not what's being
No.
taught in elementary school. That's not what's being taught in middle school. That's not what's being taught in high school. It might be taught in very specific professors' classrooms on the college level, but the vast majority of people that's going to be teaching you about Chinese history. I took a class on American-Chinese relations while in college. I was not painted a rosy picture by the People's Republic of China and their view of Taiwan or any of these situations. In fact, my teacher was extremely sympathetic to Taiwan. And on the grade school level, when it came to high school, middle school, and what we're taught when it comes to Chinese a relationship with China, it is not a rosy picture. I just don't think it is the educational system that's pushing them on this foreign policy viewpoint that you seem to be sharing, or this economic viewpoint that, oh, now they're all just becoming communist magically because the system was just taken over. I think there's something deeper about how Reaganomics and the more free market system that we've decided we wanted to take when it comes to trying to push back against unions, or when it comes to pushing back against, for example, Lyndon B. Johnson's The Great Society, something that I would be very in favor of. That is what they're looking at and saying, that has failed us. We need to go in another direction. I don't think it's, oh, they're just being indoctrinated.
I want to get to the force of vote thing, so I'll just say this real quick. You are absolutely insane. You're real quick. You are absolutely insane if you think I talk to the average fucking 10th grader and they're going to start talking to me about Reaganomics and unions. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Social emotional learning is indoctrinating a worldview, which Fabian can talk about if he wants, that prioritizes these sort of postmodernist sort of victimhood mentality type shit. They don't have any Go ahead.
Dylan Burns just proved your entire point right, because every single solitary example he gave about how the young view the world is comparative analysis and judging morality based off of consequentialist outcomes. Not once did he talk about rights. Not once did he talk about what's morally justifiable, unjustifiable, what you can and can't do, what a government should and shouldn't do based off of the liberties of the individual. He just gave you the answer. He's saying he's saying yes. When you talk to young people,
philosophy and in fucking high school,
they specifically do everything from a dialectical perspective. And yeah, he's right, and that's the problem.
Yeah, that's crazy because back in history,
what's the order of speaking? Because I'm so triggered right now.
Hold on, real quick. Real quick. Let's go to Sanso, then we'll go back to Dylan.
On the table at the end of the day, that's ridiculous.
We'll do Sanso, then back to Dylan. Go ahead, Sanso.
Well, we interrupted Rob's for his force the vote thing. I don't want to like derail too far.
No, I don't mind waiting.
Yeah, I'm a little bit fucking triggered. The idea that like we're gonna sit here and say like, oh well, all these kids are getting are getting indoctrinated into some sort of Marxist dialectical philosophy. Like it shows that you guys have no fucking idea of what's actually going on in fucking schools. I think it's way fucking easier.
I would literally crush your fucking soul on this. I can bury you.
Okay, well, we can have a one-on-one about this. Sure, we can have a one-on-one on this in a couple of days or some shit. Okay, but like
Paulo Freire. Paulo Freire is the #1 cited social scientist in America with over 460,000 citations. Okay,
that doesn't help your argument, Scott.
I thought that John said it was my turn to talk.
Doesn't really help your argument, Scott. But I want to hear what Sansa has to say.
Holy fucking shit!
Yeah, sorry.
Like, I think that like we can look at what's going on in schools, and there are like examples of either individual teachers or like individual like especially like charter schools that don't have to like follow rigorous fuck me, I've been drinking too much.
We get it. You're on Twitter. We get it. We're on Twitter. So what's the point?
Well, yeah, curriculum. That's the word I was looking for. The idea that like we can look at the curriculum that's being taught in public schools versus like charter schools. There might be like individual charter schools. There might be individual private schools. There might be individual teachers that might be like pushing some sort of ideology. But like by and large, this idea that like people are teaching like Marxist ideology, whether it's like 1 or 2 or 3 steps removed, it is fucking ludicrous. But I do think that we can look at the way that the online, Jesus fucking Christ, shut the fuck up. The idea that we can like look online and we can look at the culture online, and we can look at Twitter, we can look at TikTok, we can look at all these different places and see how ideas are spread that way, especially to people in high school. We can definitely see that there's a much easier through line there with a lot more evidence for how people might like get these ideas pushed to them through algorithmic, people liking things, and it shows up in more people's feeds. I think that's way easier to like figure out where all these like especially like further and further and further left-leaning ideas come from, right? Especially when you look at like children and like young adults who are very idealistic and want everybody to have a good life. Especially when you look at that in conjunction with the fact that they're the most likely to be on social medias and get these things pushed to them. I think that's a much easier way to figure out where these left-leaning ideas are coming from. But
why are we being so dishonest here? We can just say the kids are getting indoctrinated in schools and just the indoctrination is different. Why do we have to go through a soliloquy like that? We can see that the school system is failing kids. It's failing young adults. It's been doing it when I was in school. It's been doing it. You've been in school, Sansol, Dylan, Fabian, Rob, Sparky, John. Like the
just because.
I would love to finish a point. I would love to finish this point. I would love to finish this point. I'd love to finish this point. I'd love to finish this point.
I'm sorry. You're right.
So the issue is that the school ignores all of us. The public education system ignores all of us, and it's going to ignore us in different ways. The problem is that when we finally want to stop treating Black people like shit in the education system, we want to stop treating Latino students like shit, whatever goals you want to do when it comes along injustice lines, we see that teachers don't have guidance, and then because of their lack of guidance, they put it into their own hands in trying to educate about the injustices that are happening and realizing the existences within the classroom. And that's just nonsense. It's nonsense to think that a singular teacher can help right the ship. It's an entire institutional problem, because the school system as it's currently constructed is designed to create workers. And then on top of that, they lied to us, and they continue to lie to us in America, where it's like, okay, if you go to school for, because we all been pitched this at some point, like in order to be successful and to give and prosper generational wealth in America, you need a home. And then the United States government's like, we can't guarantee you a home, but we can guarantee you a job. George Bush did it. Barack Obama did it. Donald Trump tried. Joe Biden's trying. And every single time we see through the exacerbation of, I don't even know if that's the word, just the amplification of like people's conditions getting worse through the recession, through the K recovery that we see in COVID-19, that it's not working. But the school education system is working exactly as intended. It's going to continue to create workers unless we change it.
All right, let's get a kick it up to Dylan Burns and then over to Rob, then down to Aircraft. Okay, Dylan, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, sir. I think you're muted. Okay.
By law, I have to say this because it's the meme, and Dusty would kill me if I didn't. Maybe part of the problem is, let's pretend for a moment, or let's say even I seceded the idea that, you know what, maybe it's all indoctrination, yada yada. Is it not interesting that the people who are the most educated, the people who are the most studied on the issues, seem to always go further and further to the left? Isn't that interesting? Now we can say, and that's the meme. The meme is as we can say, oh, you know, as they get higher education, they get indoctrinated more. It is a possibility that as people study these issues, maybe they just go to the left because the left had better arguments on the issue. That could be a reality as well. I mean, we don't have any data. Let me be clear. We don't have data to back up the idea that just all be indoctrinated and just falling to the communist ideals. We don't have data to back that up. And I don't have data to back this up either. We're all just kind of speculating here. But this is an equally possible possibility that maybe we're just smarter. I don't know. That's
or maybe it's like, dude, like I gotta push on that, friend.
Easy. Let him finish. Let him finish. Let him finish.
I didn't get to say this earlier, and I do want to say this.
I can't see him.
Aircraft Sparky said earlier that it's really it's bright of these guys to shut down the federal government. I live in Maryland, and if you live in the Maryland, Virginia area, immediately you can see like the politics react when one of the sides tries to shut it down, because the federal employees say, these motherfuckers are making me not get paid. These motherfuckers are meaning I can't go out and do my job. And that's why Republicans had a lot of anger in the Maryland area, and probably part of the reason why Larry Hogan is no longer governor and we have a Democrat in office because of Republican shutdowns.
I mean, like,
all right, hold on, real quick. We gotta go over to air. We gotta go to Rob, then Aircraft, then we'll go to Liberty. All right, Rob, go ahead, sir.
Can you put me last on that chain, John?
What's up?
Can you put me last on that chain?
Oh yeah, it's going to be Rob, Aircraft, Fabian, then Joe.
Or Scotcho, or whatever. Like, I just want to be last in this exchange, is all.
Okay.
Yeah.
We actually got to wrap this up very soon because we're almost at 9:30, which ends the panel. But we'll give you last word there, Joe.
Sure.
All right, Rob.
Let's go.
All right.
We can keep going if y'all want. It's up to you. But Rob, let's go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Okay,
Go ahead, sir.
I'll say this quick, right? Yeah, to Dylan's last point there. We won't talk about the force vote. I guess we're not going to get there, but to Dylan's last point there, right? All of these workers that rely on government, coincidentally, that also are putting their thumb on the scale in various ways when it comes to, oh, there is no deep state. It's not that these people have, they don't have ideological differences that causes them to do all this thing as their role in the DoD or their role as teachers getting paid for the state. And then Dylan gives the game away. Well, they all are invested in the party that's going to have a bigger state continue to win, and they don't like it when people want lower state. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So thanks for giving the definition of sort of what the deep state entails at the local level and at the smaller level. So I'm sure they are pissed if people said we want to stop wasteful government spending and things like that. Now, to this point about education, it's not just education, it's all of these things. It's our entertainment that kids look up to, and not just kids, even young adults and even adults. All of these institutions are pushing the same way, barring some of the religious institutions. Other than that, they're all paying lip service to the causes of the left. And when we're talking about social emotional learning, it's not like they're telling first graders about Reaganomics and the Denmark way of doing things. What they're doing, and Fabian's getting to this, is they're informing them what a philosophy and an ideology on life is, right? And so it's this postmodernist type of ideology and this dialectic ideology that it's the us versus them, that there is no truth, that there's subjective truth, that everything's a power struggle, that people are born into original sin based on characteristics like their race, their gender, their sexual orientation, and that if you embrace this sort of state, or not even state, but this cultural solution, and so, I mean, it's just absurd. Dylan's definition of this, like the idea that the left is just smarter, is absolute bullshit. It just is. It's why they don't want debates. It's why they rely on censorship. It's why they rely on, Dylan, every time I talk to you, I crush you, so I don't think that you're a good example of this. It's relying on censorship and total control of the flow of information and indoctrination of people through things like our culture, like the entertainment industry, academia, etc. Even left-wingers, like, what's the name, that the guy that runs Heterodux Academy, right? He's a left-winger, Jonathan Haidt. He's been talking about the problems of the indoctrination and how one-sided academia is becoming. And we used to think it was just a problem with higher ed, but it's actually a problem when it comes to the lower levels. And so, yes, it's not surprising that when every institution is telling people from kindergarten or before all of this dialectic sort of postmodernist Marxist bullshit from Paulo Freire and all of these other people separating people in all of these ways, it's not surprising that then they grow up thinking this is the way. It's not even that they think they're right. You can see what happens with the left is they think that they're morally superior to you. They're not asking questions like, what should the government be able to do? Why is it wrong to take your personal property? Instead, they're saying, if I need something, I'm entitled, and other people are entitled, and if you disagree, you're an immoral piece of shit.
You're over time.
I can't wait to go fucking
Look, I gotta throw
in a
this
couple
out
of days
there.
and start
It's
teaching kids about fucking dialect.
Easy. Aircraft Sparky, your 2 minutes. Go, sir.
Hey, I hate to actually say this. It pains me to say it, but base Joe Lewis at this moment. Look, the reason, Dylan, why the left seems to be able to push their theories and ideas further in higher education is because they're all holding their fingers on the scale. Because if you don't answer their questions properly on the test within the universities, they fail you. Okay, those who can do, those who cannot usually teach. And most of the professors are completely incompetent out in the real world. However, in academia, they can run their own little dictatorship. They put that dick in dictator, and they sit there and they make you answer the answers that they want to hear. And that is how their ideas are winning, because in order to get that little piece of paper, that piece of lambskin, if you will, you have to regurgitate the excrement that they teach these people.
I'm not
real
too
quick before we have any
sorry.
responses, gentlemen. No, we'll give you the final one there, Joe. I want to point out I've shared a link in the chat. Please share that to your audiences. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's Dylan, then Joe, then Sansol.
Sure.
The link I just shared for you is Liberty. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, you had me in the order, and then you just.
Oh, Christ, I'm sorry.
You're supposed to be last.
Yeah, I was going to be last in the chain.
No. I want to honor that. I'm sorry. I'm getting pulled a
You're
million
good.
different ways. Gentlemen, I've shared a link in the chat. Please share this to your audiences. This is for them to vote on who they feel their best debate panelist is. Not necessarily who you agree with the most, just who you felt did the best in the debates itself. So we're going to go to Dylan, we'll go to Liberty, we'll go to Joe, and then Sansol. All right?
Oh shit! I'm trying to do the link, but fuck it.
Just whenever you're not talking, just share that link to your audience.
I'm not
please.
even streaming.
So
Well, fuck your audience. It doesn't matter. Okay, over to Dylan. Go ahead, sir.
I was never great in school. Okay, maybe it's my ADHD, Maybe it was any number of factors. Maybe I got in too many fights. I did my best though, but at no point did I blame it on my teacher just discriminating against my political ideology. You know, you can just say that it's this narrative of teachers just grading all the conservatives bad, but if I'm being completely honest, I do think that when it comes to a lot of the the higher education learning, definitely when it comes to the arts and stuff like that, conservatives taught their kids, a lot of them, that that art shit, that kind of like academia shit, that isn't the cool stuff. To become like a lawyer, maybe something like that, or something more focused in the business world, or something more focused in maybe like handyman work, good contract work. That type of stuff's great and it's fantastic, but if you don't encourage your children to go into an industry or go into a field, it's not that surprising that all the people from the other side of the aisle who were fine with their kids doing that end up dominating into it. This is why Hollywood is mostly liberal, is because a lot of conservatives are not pushing their kids to go out and risk it all in Hollywood. So I think that could be part of the reason why it's that. We're all just spitballing here because none of us really know exactly why academia is so liberal, or why young people are all completely liberal. I think it's more economic factors, and I also think that the conditions that they look at the world, they're looking at more successful models, and they're now saying with having access to being able to call our friends in Denmark and Sweden and be like, hey, person on Discord, what I actually got in a car accident today. I couldn't get healthcare. Oh, really? I could. Those types of interactions are also contributing to it. We're all spitballing, right? But I'm sorry that you didn't do good on the test because you were conservative. Sucks. Also, I am not happy with the Fed shutdown. Not because, I just want all the Fed workers to be greedy and get all the money. I think most Fed workers are unhappy with a Fed shutdown because they want to do their jobs well. And when the government isn't working, they can't do their jobs at all. And then the government starts to suck when, people aren't working, Rob. Anyway, that's enough. Sorry, I did a call, didn't I?
We're going to kick it over to Fabian. Fabian, you've got 2 minutes, sir. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so the reason we were specifically talking about schools, right, bring it all the way back to that topic of the red wave and everything, is because we were talking about what is a winning issue that the conservatives can actually fight, and can they focus on, right? Focusing on Hollywood or TikTok, right, isn't going to get them the votes so much as focusing on a specific danger of a pernicious philosophy infecting our culture, right, which is how it is being done in schools. Now, I like to call conservatives family values consequentialists, because they'll claim to be deontological in their philosophical thinking, but they love to give the power of the state certain things that they also believe are morally unquestionable, so long as it doesn't, whenever something comes after their family or comes after their children, right? And so a great way to appeal to conservatives in the GOP is, hey, they're attacking the education, they're attacking your children, they're attacking the institution of family, they're attacking marriage, right? Because that's how you kind of get those conservatives to the forefront. Now, in terms of all this conversation about like what is or isn't in school, there's a cool poem called The Narcissist's Prayer. So that didn't happen. And if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, that's not a big deal. And if it is, that's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it. And that's exactly what we're seeing on display here, because we've already seen Ibram Kendi, Sumi Cho, and Kimberly Crenshaw, along with Second Step and Psychus, coming together to say, yes, critical race theory is in schools. It's been in schools since the 1990s. We've been getting as much of it as possible as we can into schools, and we need more of it. And yet a few years ago, you had tons of people being like, oh, this isn't in schools, it's not happening. And we're seeing the same thing with queer theory, and we're seeing the same thing with the general discussion of critical pedagogy and trying to downplay things. And we'll see the same thing in the next couple of years when we talk about sexual citizenship for children, and we'll pretend like that's not in schools until they eventually admit that they're teaching queer theory that is inherently pedophilic to your children.
Yep.
All right, we're going to go ahead and go over to Joe Lewis. Joe, you've got 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to break it to you, but like the gender way, the Rainbow Mafia isn't coming after your kids. The CRT Illuminati isn't coming after your kids, because there's just other agitators, right? And we can recognize this because at the end of the day, the education system is not designed to recognize any of these people. It's not designed to recognize anybody of the Rainbow Mafia. It's not recognizing Black people, Latino people. It's not recognizing these people, and it's lying to all groups groups at the same time. Like, I graduated high school in 2008. I was in a time, I went right into the recession. And then when I was in college, during the recession. And I'm like, God forbid I was a adult during 2001 or an 18-year-old, I would be in Iraq. Period. It's like there's no way that I would have not gotten roped in to that army propaganda. And the army still has an arm for the middle class, for poor people, because they know that, you know, these conditions outside of these four walls are deteriorating. And what do you need to make sure you can get a future for your family, a home? And the military is an avenue for that. Like, this is something that ropes in kids every year. It can't stop, won't stop. And only the richest of the richest motherfuckers are going to be able to skirt it, unless you have somebody in your family who might be able to guilt you in that to be a Marine or something. But at the end of the day, I don't think these agitations of like the LGBTQI plus, whatever you want to see, just not treating black people like shit in academia, it's going to continue. It has no desire for it to stop. Basically what we're seeing, Fabian, is that they want to give just enough attention so that everybody shuts up about their injustice claim. And the minute they shut up about their injustice claim, if they went 5% to do that, great. 10% to do that, great. But they're not going 100%. They're not going to change the system as we know it, you know?
Donsel, over to you for 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was really interested to have a conversation about the future of the Republican Party, but now here we are. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm currently in school. I'm going into education. You know, I'm getting experience by being a substitute teacher. I can't wait when I start back at school on Tuesday to read the lesson plans and start teaching all the fucking like 6 and 7-year-olds about dialectical materialism and how to fucking turn themselves trans. I can't wait to fucking read that. You know, in the past couple of months when I was working as a substitute teacher, I didn't see any of that, but maybe it's just a second semester sort of thing. It's just fucking like insane to me, like the walking back and like citing philosophers and academics from the fucking like 60s and 70s to say like this is what they're indoctrinating our fucking children with now. It's really insane to me, coming from someone who has worked in elementary schools and multiple elementary schools, right, where they're saying that it starts. I haven't seen any of this shit. When I go into fucking class and I'm helping like kids learn their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, I don't remember seeing any pictures of fucking Karl Marx up there. But you know what? Maybe I'm just a little bit blind. Maybe I don't have my glasses yet, you know? Now, I don't really have too much to say about this because if I'm going to have a conversation where we're citing like 50 million fucking philosophers from the fucking 1800s through the like mid 20th century, then I'm going to need to do a little bit of fucking prep, because this isn't my like fucking life's work to fucking decide whether or not children are being turned trans because they were like shown, you know, like fucking like crazy like postmodernist theory from the 60s. But you know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, you know, maybe I'll like do some research and I'll find out, but I've never been given any proof of this. I don't know why Joe Lewis is agreeing with you guys that that children are being indoctrinated into fucking Marxism. That's really insane to me. And also it's really fucking insane to me that he's saying that people are being like indoctrinated into the military from like the poorest of our poorest people in our country, when the primary like demographic that the army pulls from is people in the middle class. And
that's what I said.
I'm sorry.
You misrepresented what I said. I said middle class and poor people.
Sorry, I must have misheard you then.
Wait, are we interrupting for misrepresentations? Because I would like to post hoc interrupt literally everything.
I mean, I only talked like 3 times, so I made it very simple to understand my points. So, you know.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, when you're talking about like them targeting fucking kids in high school, like they're like primarily pulling from like people who are like desperate for housing, when that's not like the primary reason why people pull.
Army recruiters lie to high school kids. We know this to be true.
Yeah, but that's not the reason that people join the army primarily. The primary reason is because they have family that are like
or
military veterans.
Or you get hit with an army recruiter that bullies you into recruitment. We've seen this before.
Bullies you into recruitment?
You can talk to John about it. You can talk to Fabian about it. You can talk to Aircraft Sparky about it.
I would love to read
recruiters' mouth is moving, they are lying.
Yeah.
Hey, as an employee of a 3-letter organization, I cannot disclose. You will not mistreat our armed forces in any way, Joe Lewis.
I mean, there's listen. I'm just saying, like people. If you watched nine, I mean, I'm not to meme a little bit. Let me meme for like, can I meme one thing? Like, if you watched any type of propaganda, Law and Order, SVU, 911, CSI, you think there's black people all over in all these institutions in high positions of power. You think the CIA would be run by a nigga, but at the end of the day, that ain't the case. Like you're like, if you watch any, there's more black people. I've never seen more black people in my life, and all those military serials and shit. And then if you're a black person going to the army, and it's like, wait a minute, what? I mean, there's black people here, but I was told there's like.
But Joe Lewis,
no,
there's
a bunch. There's a bunch.
I gotta add this. I'm sure Fabian can check me on this. There are a lot of black people in the military, but
yes, there are.
A lot of them, because I was mainly infantry. You don't see a lot of black people.
They're also called Freemasons.
Oh no, there is a lot of black racism. There's racism in general in the military. Let's not even beat around the bush on that. But at the same token,
you're saying you're not like. Listen, I can't listen. If you're,
let me finish this thing. I'm saying that black people, by and large, the one thing I did notice, they were very heavily represented in the equal opportunity field. They were very heavily represented in the S shops, more paperwork. I didn't see them signing up a lot for the manual labor or highly dangerous jobs. Not saying they didn't, they do, but it's primarily more white and Latino.
Cooks and truck drivers had a lot of black people, and that's hard
well.
Fucking work.
Didn't see many in aviation either, by the way.
No, didn't either. Yeah, 100%. But then also we have to chalk that back up to the fact that, like, what is it? 55% of the population is white, so naturally you're going to see an overrepresentation.
It's like 5'4", I think, right? Still.
Yeah, but even still, though, it always struck me funny. Is like, why is it that black people are naturally drawn to those types of MOSs / jobs within the military, and how did they get there? Is that something that they freely did, or was it a recruiter said this is the direction you should go? Because I feel like if there's go ahead.
I don't think you're right, John, because like
what?
When I was in Ukraine, I didn't see a lot of black soldiers.
Damn.
You're not in the American military.
Yeah. That's true.
I mean, I have a theory, John, but we can get to it another
John,
day.
How many black people work at Raytheon, Dylan?
Actually,
it's because the Nazi tattoos don't show up that well.
Let's push. Sansel has to leave us a real quick aftershock. Can you give me the results of the voting thing? Now, again, this is just to test this out. It's just for your audiences to vote who they feel did the best in tonight's debate. Being the Sansol has to go, we're still going to keep the debate going. I got one more topic I want to lob to you guys. So real quick. Oh, shit. And here are the results. You've got Dylan Burns coming in at 37%. Second, you have Rob Knorr at 27%. Third, you have Fabian at 18%. Joe Lewis with 7%. Aircraft Sparky 7%. And Sansol with 4%. Now, again, some people have bigger audiences.
Directly correlated to audience size.
This is scientific.
Directly correlated to audience size.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. This is scientific truth, and you know it.
This is a government data.
Look, I don't know. Look, hey, John, we're not even done yet, and they've already denied an election. See, this is how conservatives act every time.
That's because
the CIA operative wins on a CIA
directly
platform,
related to audience size.
Never. I don't know what you're talking
Man,
about.
it sounds like a bunch of hope from you, Fabian. I'm just
everyone.
a shit debater. That's what it turns out to be, right?
Impartial.
Please. I just heard a water pipe.
We got banned on Twitch.
Can we get some more votes to come in? There's a water pipe breaking over here. So let's stop the count and get some more votes to come in here, and then we can find out who.
I'm not even sure.
Gentlemen, drops coming.
Real quick, Sansol, thank you for being here tonight, sir. Always good to have you on the panel.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Make sure you check out, again, shellshockcbd.com. DM me what you want from there. We'll send it to you probably Monday when we go back into work, just for coming on the panel. So thank you.
Yeah, 100%.
You can get a little bit more accurate if you do the Oxford style, though.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first half of what you said there, but yeah, is it okay if I plug myself really quick?
Absolutely, yeah. Let everybody know.
Yeah, I'm Sansol. I like to play video games, and I'm really bad at them. If people like what I said, they can follow me on Sansol on YouTube, since I got banned on Twitch for denying the trans genocide. If you guys didn't like what I said, you're also welcome to follow me, because I love arguing with people all the time. It's very fun for me. Fabian, if you want to like set up that conversation about education and stuff, I think that there's a lot of concessions that I wouldn't make to you that about like the postmodernist philosophers and shit in the 20th century. A lot of them were like decent. Some of them were really, really, really ultra fucking cringe. Especially like some of the like early like critical theory people like said some really fucking like crazy things. But that aside, I think it would be a really interesting discussion. I just need to like actually, get some fucking sources in line.
Yeah. I'll give you a
yeah.
couple weeks because obviously I can't do it on Twitch, so it has to be on like one of my YouTube days.
Yeah.
And I got a community guideline strike for medical misinformation for talking about the jab. So.
Gotcha. Well, anyways, I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here, man. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Hit the button too. I gotta actually leave as well.
Okay. Well, hey, Joe, tell everybody where they can find you at.
Yeah, you can follow me twitch.tv / jooelewis with two O's. Twitter is the same handle. If there's something you want more clarification, just feel free to @me on Twitter or just send me a DM or something. Be glad to clarify and clear stuff up.
Thank you for being here, Joe. Again, don't forget, DM me. Tell me what you like from Shell Shock, if anything at all.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you for coming on the show, man. Really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. Take care. Have a great night.
Have a good night.
See you, Joe.
Take care, Joe.
See you, Joe.
Yeah.
Oh, so that leaves us with
So,
Dylan Burns,
topics.
Rob.
I almost was about to walk away. I'm so sorry. Let me turn this down. I actually got to run. I'm on relationship time. So I'm sorry that I'm not able to do any post talks after. My girlfriend has to go into work, so I gotta drive her in. This guy by the panel is predicated on that. With that being said, I appreciate you guys coming through in the sort of like weird set of circumstances. We'll be back up on Twitch tomorrow. So be sure to check that out, twitch.tv / jooelewis with 2 O's. I am sorry that I wasn't overly talkative on this. I tried to keep the air open until it's something I really want to like contest to. The school stuff was kind of cool, and the like future to GOP stuff does interest me, so that's why I was a little bit more talky, a little bit more pokey. But either way, thank you for coming through. I'll catch you tomorrow. We'll talk about this panel and just some general thoughts. But all right, guys, take care. Have a great rest of your night. I'll see you soon.